We have traveled a long way and have seen many curiosities, but none as perplexing as a planet we stumbled upon called Earth.
I'm a tall priest of a new 1439, who's coming 1492, please. Time ain't nothing new, but little nut was stage 3, really only 2. Sun's bright, say he went there last year. It was past Wednesday at 2:52 afternoon. Sun giant still walking. Think they eat cake? End up steak stuff on steel plates. If Moors don't wake from the dream state, it's season for the meal. T-Rex for the pet, reach a thigh or the heel. Take time, you laugh now, skip my take. If Moors don't wake from the dream state, it's season for the meal. T-Rex for the pet, reach a thigh or the heel. Take time, you laugh now, skip my take. Have a field day. Big jaws stop the 2 feet, permanent feathers. New clan with your cool feet. Parade can't go fit with the 2 keys. 2 elect stepping, each side, everything jump. Hide if you quick or you just stomp. Looking like a 2-cent stamp, length and width of land of the nod. You just
sons of God and daughters of earth in the flesh. This is no myth, research the legends of Gilgamesh. Preserve human skeletal fossils, surprise. Scientists and archaeologists know Olmec heads are life-size. Keep my ancestors' giant femur bones in museums. Titans fighting Tyrannosaurus Rex in Greek coliseums. Slap pterodactyls out the air, riding thesaurus. Walking, leaving footprints in granite floors. Advocating for baths, resisting Christian doctrine. First ayah high beams when sight is locked in. We are not speaking elephantitis or giantism. Look us up, we found in journals in Hinduism. Similar stories told in multiple cultures. Sumerians 12-foot axes for agriculture. Grapes, 4 in the hand, watermelon-sized onions, jack-sized beanstalks, not Goliath or Bunyan. Mines can't grasp giant Waston, Cyrus. Sidon Trident was forged by 3 giant cyclops. With 1 eye, get your head, sons of man, heckle 'em. Claiming Canaanite Nixus, Enoch, Nephilim.
A giant's born. Notice that birth within large forms in such a way statues from back in the day were actually the norm. Able to perform feats with large blocks of concrete and carving in diorite, ensuring facial features right at heights A+. If bones is what we trust to say dinosaurs exist, then human giants must. A lust for information has encouraged many chasing forms of evidence like ancient documents and footprints. My logic is what makes sense. There's no defense to ideas, just what is and is not clear. Then I hear that some say it was an exaggerated way in which they were presented. The artist intended simply to represent the personas with the idea of great, and in that endeavor they cleverly chose to elaborate. Rarely invest in debate, just state perspective and objective. Yes, I think and feel the real and promote proof in our collective.
Giants aren't scary.
Not even their terrifying leader, a monstrous giant with 2 heads.
Keep reading, Mother. It's just a story.
Is it?
Peace, Moors. Islam to all. Islam to all. That's present. You already know. Peace, Brother Yusuf. We're out here for another one. Another installment. Canaanland Moors Live. We got a special guest today. So one of the Moors who you Moors know, Brother Al Jameer, sent me a link with the laughing out loud, the crying emoji. So I look at this link that he sends me, and then we did some of it live on IG yesterday. So we're here just to put out some more info about, Moors in America, and that no Drew Ali wasn't playing around. He was writing exact what he was telling the Moors. We're indigenous to here. You're from Mississippi. You're from Missouri. I'm going to show you. He dug in the ground, found Egyptian writings and stuff like that here. He told you that Chicago's Mecca. He told you that we're the Moabites. He told you that we're the Canaanites. He told us that we got a vast estate, the Moorish Empire and all that. And it's real. It's really real. So I'm gonna shut up. And if any questions come up, we'll just ask those. Any more's in the chat, I'm gonna put the link in there. So if you want to get on here, if you have questions or anything like that, you could get on there. So we're going to be talking about Moorish history today. We're going to be talking about Moorish history today, as usual. But it's definitely going to be mind-opening. You know, if you have your pens, you already know how it goes, Moors. If you have your pens and stuff like that, have your stuff, because you're definitely going to get some place names, references that you could do your own research. Brother Longo, you're still muted. All right.
Howdy.
How's things?
I'm well. Thanks for having me, Kuja.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Very glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to yield the floor, and we could probably start off with how you got to this place, and when did you see the first remnants or the first reference points of there being a Moorish connection in America, not just in Morocco?
Right. Well, you know, my channel kind of revolves around Florida, of course. And if you're looking at a potential for Moorish history in America, you'd probably have to start where the European history starts in America, because there's little else to go off of. Luckily, today we have an abundance of stuff coming out, but up until then, you really had the Mormon faith was really the only large group of European people explaining a lot of this stuff that held on to the tradition that this was, if not a old world, potentially the old world. So not the new world. But if you're talking about the first mention of Moors, would actually be on one of the first Spanish expeditions to Florida in European conquest. They wrote back to the king. Dr. Pedro de Santander wrote back to the king saying, here, Florida is the promised land. There are Amorites, Amalekites, Moabites, and Canaanites living here. And because they're living here, we have to go take it from them, because they're the, cursed people, so to speak, from the Catholic point of view. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Real quick, could you, because you just smacked a lot of information right off rip. Could you just a small introduction on what interests you into coming into this information? Like, how did this all start for you? Where did this come from, where you can get interested in this type of research?
Sure. So since I've been about 18, I've been into, esoteric, occult stuff, and I'm Irish. My ancestry is Irish. So, believe it or not all Europeans, and I'm saying this to the audience, not every European was treated the same, and very often there was a hierarchy involved in European affairs as well, even in colonial times. And the Irish tend to fall very, very low on that list of who was treated well. So I always had a mind for looking into Irish history, and I think you guys might be aware that there's an immense crossover between Irish history, Phoenician history, and then from Phoenician to Moorish history. And once you start learning some things about Ireland, there's the Black Irish that today we're told were just the remnants of a Spanish armada. So there was a lot of branching off points along the way. But once I really sunk my teeth into Florida, you start seeing all the architecture here. And it's all Moorish. It's not only is it Moorish, it's Moorish castles built in the late 1800s that are still up today, standing completely strong. They look brand new, and there's pretty much no explanation except they just looked good. They just looked good in the tropics. That's really it.
Quick interjection there as well. That's why I brought up Phil Pasquini to you, because he goes into that realm as well with the architecture and this Moorish theme in the architecture in the Americas that shouldn't really be here in the context of what people know as where Morocco is, where Tunis, Algiers, where the quote unquote Moors were ruling. Morocco hardly ever comes up as being another one of those places that this Moorish theme is played out. But that was a lot of the interest too in what you were presenting, because it was so connected to Phil Pasquini's stuff.
I've actually never heard of him.
Philip Pasquini.
Pasquini. I'm gonna look into that.
So he's lectured like at Library of Congress and all this, dealing with the same theme of this array of Moorish architecture out here. That if these people if it's a European that built it, then why is he using Moorish style of all the styles that could be used? If it's some Spaniard, if it's an Asiatic, if it's somebody highly melanated, whatever it is, they keep using this Moorish theme in the architecture, from doorways to roofs to materials used. You know what I mean? Not that they don't have all these different examples that they can pick from. But I was saying that to say, brother. Brother Al Young, if you want to get on here, make sure you're on here, because the Moor who introduced me to you is in the chat. So his perspective too on the connection is going to be crazy. But so
could I?
Go ahead.
Could I screen share something?
Yeah.
Okay. This is probably where I had a lot of piecing together theories, where you have the Moorish architecture, you have the Moorish names like Venice, Florida, Moorland, Moor Haven, Winter Moor, all these places, these Moors, but I've been covering that angle for a while. But when I saw this article, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay. When I saw this article, this was kind of the nail in the coffin, where this is some of the first, this was about the fourth voyage or so to the Americas, writing back, to Florida. So first voyage to Florida was about 1512, 1513. Then to Florida. Then Menendez came, and this was written later. This back to the Spanish king. And what he says is, so dated 15th July, 1557, from Dr. Pedro de Santander. These pastures are the New World, wherein is comprised Florida, now in possession of the demon. And here he makes himself adored and revered. This is the land of promise, possessed by idolaters, the Amorite, Amalekite, Moabite, Canaanite, This is the land promised by the Eternal Father to the faithful, since we are commanded by God and the Holy Scriptures to take it from them, being idolaters, and by reason of idolatry and sin, to put them all to the knife, leaving no living thing save maidens and children, their cities robbed and sacked, their walls and houses leveled to the earth. So, now people's first argument is going to be that those are just poetic terms. He's just being dramatic. And that's kind of a condemning term to call someone. To call someone a Canaanite means that they're an enemy of the church. And there's truth to that. But when you understand the geographical context of these terms, it makes complete sense. Amorite means either Syrian or North African. And what does Syrian mean? Syrian actually goes back to Sirius, the eastern star, the star in the east, which is the star in the crescent. Sometimes it's the eastern star, Sirius. Sometimes it's Venus, the morning star. But both are used within the crescent moon. And we're going to get into that in a sec, how the Gulf of Mexico is the true fertile crescent. The true crescent that Islam employs as its insignia. That crescent is the fertile crescent. And it's many things. It's the crescent moon, of course, but they're one and the same, you know. And the Gulf of Mexico is the cradle of civilization. The Moors knew this. The Mormons knew this. The Phoenicians knew this. This goes back to the Atlanteans. But Amorite, so Amorite has the word Moor right inside of it. Amorite. Amalekite. Well, Amalek, that's a land in the Bible, a people in the Bible. But also what you have is Malachite. And Malachite comes from the Congo. So there we have an African trace. Moabite. So Moab is actually the same as Mojave, believe it or not, because V's and B's interchange in many languages. Canaanite, well, as we're talking right now, Canaanland, that's a big interpretation, is that Canaan is Canada. Also Arkansas, Kansas, right? These letters up, these places up the Mississippi, up the Missouri, up the Ohio, up into Canada. But yeah, any questions so far?
Yes, I got.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
All right. You said you're gonna go in on the Gulf of Mexico and the Fertile Crescent, so I'll leave that to when you get ready for that. But can you explain the Moab and the what was the other word you said? The Moab is similar to another word. Can you say that word again?
Mojave. This is the desert out in the southwest United States, Mexico area. I'm not exactly sure. Let me look it up. So the Mojave Desert is California, Mexico area. And so with linguistics, after all, you know, when it comes to being a Moor, you have to realize phonetics is where everything comes from, phonetics. And phonetics comes from Phoenicians. Mm-hmm. So these are the first phonetic spellers. The first alphabet, alpha, beta, comes from the Phoenicians. Before the Hebrew, before the Arabic, before the Sanskrit, you had the Phoenicians.
Right.
So you have to understand the way that the American place names were written was done so that it would segment all the places in half, so that you'd get the Americanized pronunciation, and then you'd have the native pronunciation, right? Like in Florida, you get a lot of the colas and atchies and hatchies and itchies and walkies, right? Well, those are suffixes. You have to understand phonetics you're changing suffixes. So Mojave, you're using two different languages, one of which might not have a J or a V. And if you know Spanish, V and B are interchangeable. So that would be Mojave in Spanish, Mojave. Some dialects of Spanish. So you change the V to the B, and that J can disappear because it's a soft J. So Mojave is the same word as Moab. So Moabites from the Bible are from the Southwest United States. It seems like. Now I actually have another map over here that explains how all of Mexico is the land of Shem, or a land of Shem. You know, perhaps not the only, but the land of Shem. And Florida, if you know about Florida, the most famous tribe in Florida, even though we're told they're not officially from Florida, officially, that's the narrative. You know, obviously that's not true. But that the Seminoles are, this is what I was saying, how a Seminole, at the end of that word, you have Seminole. Ola or Ole, like Creole, Apalachicola, that suffix is an American native suffix. You can replace that with a suffix from across the Atlantic and it still means the same thing. For example, Seminole is Semitic. And Seminole and Semitic means...
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that.
Shemitic. Semitic is Shemitic. These are the same root words. Seminole. And the Seminoles actually allied, were officially told they have nothing to do with Mexico, right? Well, I have an article that my friend Ben from Waking Up with Analog sent me that shows the Seminoles actually sided and helped Montezuma against the Spanish when they first came. So the Seminoles were ranging from at least Alabama, Florida area, all the way to the Yucatan. And that's pretty much what I'm saying, because the Seminoles, who are Shemitic or Semitic, well, let's look at their other names. It's all in the names. Everything's in the spelling, in the linguistics, the phonetics. The Seminole also go by 2 or 3 other names, and all of them are very, very telling. Seminole, Shemitic, or Seminole. They also go by the word Muscovy. Well, mus is muslin. And another native tribe in Florida is the Muspa. So you have Muspa, Muskogee, Meskwaki. They're not in Florida. They're up north, the Meskwaki, the Mascogo, there's actually so many variations of this name. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. Muscante, all these names up and down the Mississippi, Missouri, and Ohio rivers, pretty much, which is this rich river valley, right? The true land of Isis is up and down the Mississippi, right? So, what was I going to show you guys? Here, I'll show you Montezuma, Seminoles side with Montezuma. Because this is crazy. You know, not only are we not told that they're potentially Arabic, Muslim, Moorish in origin, from the other side of the Atlantic, at least in the way that we're taught. What we're taught is North African. They might have been here all along, but we're told the Seminoles are half North African, right? African slaves, we're told that it means runaway slave. It's all in the words. I'm going on so many tangents here, but that's
all good. We love tangents.
Okay. So here, the Seminole, we're told has nothing to do with Semitic, right? And we're told it has nothing to do with the word Seminole. Seminole means first. if you're a Seminole undertaking or a Seminole mission would be your first undertaking or your first mission. So Seminole actually means first in English. It means the first, the original, right? So think about that, the original, right? And that's the name they ended up with. Well, we're told that their name actually comes from the Spanish cimarron. Cimarron. Well, cimarron has the word sim and then maroon. And I think you guys know what the maroons are.
Yeah.
You also have marauders, Mormons, Mauritania, right? All the Moors and the Mars that come out of that. So from right there, but let me show you this Seminole map or article. Sorry, not a map.
And then another good reference point for that too is Nature Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers. He puts out a lot of those stuffs into perspective too, with the names and how all these names are connected because of the phonetics. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what does it say in the Bible? The word of God cannot be changed. So as much as you can try to alter the word of God by changing the spellings, changing the, parts of the words, the word of God cannot change, and it will always return back to its original over time, no matter how far they push it away. But here I've got a good one right here. Let's take a look at this. So shout out to Ben at Waking Up with Analog. Okay, you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Cortez, when he came to Mexico, this was written by a Muskogee chronologer, I believe, a Muskogee historian who lived with the Muskogee. So this was actually inside information, which is very rare to get from the Muskogee, Seminole, Creek, Miccosukee. Cortez, at that time, the Muscogees then formed a separate republic on the northwest of Mexico. Hitherto invincible in war, they now rallied to the aid of Montezuma, engaging in the defense of that greatest of aboriginal cities. At length, Cortez was successful. Montezuma was killed, his government overthrown, and his thousands of subjects put to the sword. Having lost many of their own warriors, the Muscogees determined to seek some other land. The whole tribe directed their course eastward until they came to the banks of the Red River, where they laid out a town and remained there several years. In 1527, they abandoned their town, and after various battles with the Alabamas and Alabama, I'm sure you guys have realized by now, but for those that don't in the audience, Alabama, number one, it's al, so that's an Arab prefix right there. Alabama. Well, you could also look at it as Alabama. Alabama. Also, if you really want to stretch the words, L's change to R's, and this is Alhambra, this is Abraham, both of those words. Settled upon the banks of the Wabash. How long they remained here is not known, but they finally crossed the Ohio and Tennessee and settled upon the Yazoo. Learning from what a fine country was occupied by the Alabamas, they broke up their establishment upon the Yazoo, took possession of the lands upon the Alabama, Coosa, and Tallapoosa, and same with Talla, guys. Whenever you see Tallahassee, Talladega, you can think Tallahassee, Talladega, even Dallas, Dallas. Right? It's all right there. And advanced to the Ukmulgek, Oconee, and Ogeechee, pushing on their conquests. They reduced a warlike tribe called the Uchis upon the Savannah River. And at sometime after these conquests, the French established themselves at Mobile. So Mobile comes from the word Mabilla, right? Mabilla is actually Alabama backwards. So Mobile is Alabama backwards. You see how they twist these words, spell them a different way, and then stamp them so that they stop moving and that people won't let them drift back to how they're originally pronounced, right?
Now, have you ever? We have this picture floating around of a map called the Exotic Map. Have you ever read that Exotic Map?
No.
Okay,
What's that?
Let me just give you. I'm just gonna read some of these, and I just want you to just give your perspective on how they came about here. Right. So this is you could probably find this on online too, but an exotic map of the USA featuring towns that actually exist: Camelot, Toledo, Madras, Hamburg, Dublin, Malta, Amsterdam, Galilee, Scandinavia, Yucatan, Toronto, Agra, Paris, Palestine, Zion, Turkey, Shanghai, Poland, Johannesburg, Gibraltar, and the list goes on. So now, what would be the purpose of such cover-ups, I guess, of
well, you know, they like I was saying, that's a great point, by the way. As I was pointing out, they like to obscure stuff, and they're good at hiding and twisting things. Well, they're also good, and everyone's good at, what's the best way to hide things in plain sight. So they hide these things in plain sight, and that often means just leaving them there and just coming up with a different story. So they'll leave the names, and they know people are so gullible by now. All they really have to do is come up with something that makes a little bit of sense. And the Mormons are really one of the best solutions to these these questions that we have. Because the Mormons, who we are told, guys, this is incredible. We're told the Mormons have nothing to do with the Moors. And genetically, they might not have anything to do with the Moors. But whatever history they've inherited still has so many gold nuggets of truth in it that it's still worth looking at. The Mormonism that we see in 1970, 1990, today, 2022, is not the same Mormonism that was going around 250 years ago or 200 years ago. And they'll tell you that the Nephites, the Jaredites, and all these ancient runaway tribes were here in America well before that. I've got some good maps that we can look at in a sec. But to go back to the name part, the Seminole, who go by Muskogee, we covered Muskogee Muslim, right? Well, they also go by the name Creek, right? Creek. This is strange. They didn't call themselves Creek. And there's no Creek Wikipedia page that for Creek natives. There is none. There's Muskogee page. There's no Creek page, right? Well, Creek equals Greek. Greek and Creek. If you know Kabbalah, these are actually the same exact word, because G and K are the same in many instances. So, there's your Greeks, your runaway Greeks. And I actually have evidence that Greeks were in Florida. European Greeks that we're told, like Ottoman Greeks, were in Florida 150 years before Americans ever were. So, and they didn't know that they were there when the Americans got there. But I'll show you.
Speaking about that too when you said when you brought up Ottoman, and then that relative to Atum, and that's ancient Egyptian as well, which is is this correlation that goes all throughout the world. It's a wonder how there's so much division when there's there's so much overlapping history that there's no way that humanity should be separated as it is in the context that, you know, with racism and discrimination and you know, these things shouldn't exist if or maybe even wouldn't exist if they would just put the truth out there, which I guess that defeats the purpose of for them.
Yeah. You know, I think there's a lot of problems in the world, but I think we can point to one particularly that kind of lands us in the situation we're in with, because there's a lot of bad history with colonialism. There's a lot of deception. There's also a lot of good that we're not told about. And colonialism does not mean the act of taking land from someone else. Every race there's ever been has taken land from someone else, okay? Except for maybe the Golden Age. But the act of colonialism comes from the name Colone. Colone. These are the Columbus family. Columbus's real name was Cristobal Colon.
Right.
So they hide his name too, and they show the Portuguese pronunciation. Colombo or Columbus, his Italian and Portuguese. His real name was Cristobal Colon, and he was Jewish. A big surprise. And basically, he comes from a banking family, and you know, hey, nothing wrong with that, but it is what it is, and they don't really tell us about that.
Yeah.
Something interesting about Columbus. He was led, I talked about this in the Tinfoil podcast, he was led to America by an Irish man. Well, Irish are descended largely from the same, we know for a fact that the Seminole are descended from Irish, Celtic, Welsh, and Scottish. We know that for a fact because their names are all, here, I gotta plug my computer in real quick.
No, it's all good. Right, so as you can see, there's a connection that we're making, okay? And it's important. It's very important that this type of information gets out, you know, because it's the new frequency information that's gonna change the frequency of the people. You know, there's been enough civil rights and marching and you know, get arms and kill the white man and all this stuff. There's been enough of that got nowhere. So it's time to change the focus. But so far, yeah, 100%. But you can carry on.
I just want to show you why I was talking about the Greek and the Creek is because with all those names that you were talking about, the old world names that we have in the new world for no reason, in every single, this is such a good connection, in every single Creek state where the Creeks were present at some point in time, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, in all of these states, you have in Athens. There's an Athens in every single one of those states. Athens is a Greek city name. Is it any coincidence that every Creek state has an Athens in Athens City? There's no coincidence like that. That is because Creek is Greek, but they don't want to tell us. So to answer your question a little bit, what we don't understand is that in Athens is a type of city. In Athens is a center of learning. And some people will say that poetically now, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's, oh, that place is like in Athens. In Athens used to be a role. It used to be, it used to be almost like an occupation to be an Athenian, to be a Greek. After all, if you know, what's his name? Alexander the Great. Every virtuous foreigner is a Greek in my eyes. So that's coming from the emperor of Greece, king of Greece. So I think we need to re-examine what it means to be Greek. But you have the Creek in Florida, you have New Smyrna, Athens, Philadelphia, Arkadelphia, Marathon, Venice. Venice is Roman Italian, but same deal. And a lot more all throughout the southeastern United States alone. But I'd like to show you a map. I'll pull up a good before I lose it. Orange juice article. You see my screen? This is an orange juice advertisement in Florida. And it says, Crescent Moon brand. This is the crescent of Islam, guys. Moor juice. So they're calling orange juice Moor juice. Crescent City Fruit Company. Crescent City, Florida. So the Moors actually brought citrus to Europe. That's a fact. And then the Spanish brought it to Florida, we're told. But I think the Moors brought it there first, because Columbus actually brought it over, citrus and oranges, on his very, very first voyages to the Americas. And when they left it there and came back decades later, the natives had fully implemented citrus into their agriculture. So how the hell would we know if it was here or not? They don't know shit about fossils anyway.
Now, a question too that I wanted to ask you. In your research, have you found that the origin stories, as far as the first people populating somewhere, is actually reverse, that it might have started on this side and went that way, then back over here?
Okay, so that's a good question. It's hard to look at things strictly racially, but it's always it's kind of the best thing we have to go off of historically is skin color. It's one of the most distinguishing things about people. And in Florida, the first people that Columbus bumped into were actually called the Carib people. And the Carib is where we get the word Caribbean from.
Yeah.
Well, Carib, if you put an apostrophe behind that C, that's Ka-Arab, Ka-Arab, Ka-Arab. It's a prefix. So Carib and Caribbean are Arab and Arabian. So the Caribbean Sea is the Arabian Sea. So this is the Gulf of Mexico. And Mexico, I should have said this earlier, Mex is actually Mesopotamia. So Mesopotamia is Mesopotamia. They have us thinking that man was created in a dirty, desolate desert in the middle of nowhere where it's hot, and God was very angry at that place. And they want us to believe that's where mankind came from. That's not true at all. That's brainwashing. That makes you act like you were born in a desert, in a barbarous place, right? So we there's many interpretations. I'm not going to say I know exactly where mankind was created for sure. I actually think mankind's always been here, and that's kind of the whole point, is God experiences his creation through man. But when you look at, Mexico, Mesopotamia, Seminole, and Shem is actually, Sem is mess backwards. And they do this a lot. They flip words backwards, like I showed you with Mobilla and Alabama. Sem is mess backwards. So Semitic and Mexitic are the same word, Mexico, right? And so origin myths, you have the Caribs in the Caribbean that that bumped into the first people. Those people also go by the name Kalingo, and also Califongo or Califingo, something like that. Well, that's in the Caribbean. Over in California, you have the Californians, right? The fornicators, the caliphs, the caliphate, the Kali, the black goddess, Kali. That's California. So personally, I think that what you'd call Lemurians entered from the South California area. And that was New Lemuria. That was Cali, the land of Kali, California. And those were especially dark-skinned people, probably some of the darkest that you'd see in North America, native dark-skinned people, like Mojave, Moabites. Also the word Amalekite, looking like the Congolese. And as I just told you, Mexico is Shemitic, the land of Shem. I can show you a good map that's going to show you that. But right here, Nicaragua. What do you notice about the word Nicaragua? I can't say it. It's got the same root as Niger.
Right.
As Nigeria. Nicaragua is the same land being reflected across the Atlantic. So you have Shem, Moab, Niger, right? And Cali. You have all these lands, the Caliphate, right? A caliph, California. But I'll zoom in on this map a little bit. I've been staring at it for too long.
Yeah.
But to go back to the Greek, you have this is a map that was made around World War I, before a lot of these truths were really, really covered up, right? But we're told that this is a what if map, a bad possibility, that if America didn't enter the war, this is what could happen. And what it shows is that most of North America goes by New Prussia. Florida and Creek territory goes by Turconia. Down there by Constantinople. Well, Constantinople is Greek and Turkish and Greek. That's Byzantine and Ottoman. Down here you have the Gulf of Hait. Now, Haiti comes from the word Hades. So Haiti is Hades. This is why, with all due respect to Haitian people, that land is a land of, bad. I'm sure it's beautiful, but they have a hard time over there. And that's no coincidence. It's named Hades for Hades. And that's where you get this Gulf of Hate in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, in Florida, that Baghdad is actually not there. But there is a Baghdad in Florida. There is an actual city called Baghdad, Florida. Now, with New Prussia, Prussia means Germany, for those that don't know. So all these names are Germanized. Well, America is largely, mid-America, Ohio, stuff like that, Pennsylvania, Ohio, are filled with Amish people who may be descended from also a different branch of Amun people, Amish, right? Amun, you see the same root right there. But what you have is, those are, to this day, Mennonite people, Amish people, they speak German and Dutch, right? Dutch and German are like the same language, Deutsch. So this makes sense that all of this middle America would be handed over to Germany. In the left, you have Japonica. So this is handed over to Japan. And I don't think it would have needed to have gone down that far, but the Pacific Northwest has a lot of the native culture in the Pacific Northwest is very, what you could call Asiatic. I think most people will agree with that. In fact, going across pretty much the whole northern United States, at some point we had a Mongol invasion come into the United States and reshape, recolor a lot of the people. And this is where you get a lot of that Asiatic blood. And forgive my speech, the squinty-eyed genes in northern Native Americans. Whereas in southeastern United States, like the Seminole, like the Creek, you see a lot more what you would call Africoid phenotypes, African genes, African facial types, stuff like that. What we would call African, right? In the northern United States, you see a lot of Asiatic phenotypes. And these are the same people on horses with bows that I believe crossed from Asia. And this is a largely Mongol culture that has been transplanted into America well before Columbus was here. But what else on this map is good?
Well, one thing I wanted you to talk about was
Sure.
the tower. The dude who built the tower, the Crystal Tower in Florida.
The Bach Tower?
Yeah, the Bach Tower. You gotta talk about that.
Okay.
You gotta talk about that. And there was something else. Oh yeah, the anchor man.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll show you some anchors.
Yeah.
And can I add on? Because before you took that map down, I saw that it said barbarians at the top.
Yep.
I know you know, like the barbarian thing is connected to Barbary or the Berbers, or like
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the Barbary coast is North Africa, right? That's what it shows us in the history books. Well, historically, barbarians are Germans, Celts, Vikings, even Slavs. And a lot of times that's coming from a Roman perspective. It's Romans that have a very Roman culture that are very prejudiced against things that aren't Roman. They're looking at all these different cultures and clumping a lot of them together. And Barbary was the word that they would use for that. Another way to look at this is, sorry, you have Barbar in North Europe, and then you have Barbar in North Africa. So how do those two link up? Well, they won't tell you in the mainstream. They'll tell you that they have nothing to do with each other, kind of, that it's Berber turned to Barbary, and barbarian up there is just a coincidence, right? That it's just a Roman name. Well, when you know what barber means beard. Barbaros, right? Barbados, Barbarossa, Berber. So barber means bearded, and only some people have the genes for beards, believe it or not. And this is pretty important. And in North Africa, you have a lot of beard growing genes. up near the North Pole, where the Vikings come from, who I believe are some of the original Phoenicians, or the Finnish people, Phoenician, that the Phoenicians definitely had beards, and they brought beards down to North Africa. That's why when you go to sub-Saharan Africa, they have no beards. In sub-Saharan Africa, they cannot grow beards. A lot of these tribesmen have actually never seen beards. Not even a mustache on some of these guys. When you go to North Africa, it's the other way around. Beards, come out of everyone pretty much. Now in Japan, in Southeast Asia, it's the same thing, where much of the Asian population can't grow any beards. Now, something we know about the Romans is whenever you see Roman statues, they never have beards, right? They're always shaved. The Romans were a shaving people. The Greeks had beards. So that's something to tell you right there. But we have a largely Roman history. And the Romans probably hated and clumped together everyone that had the beards. And when you see these old Sumerian gods, Egyptian gods, even just the people, the kings, the regular people, when you see them, they have these beards, long beards. So you can look at history partially from the beards and the non-beards. But you asked about the why barbarian. After the Barbary Wars, which was America fighting Moorish pirates, right? We're told pirates. Obviously, that's a very one-sided look at how that war went. History was written by the victor. But you have Mauritania, Morocco, right? Well, as soon as America won that war, they went down to Key West. And in Key West, they established martial law. And during that exact same time, they started martial law in Key West in like the 1820s or 30s. Then you have the Mormon Wars and the Seminole Wars starting and happening at the exact same times. So the American government enacted martial. Number one, they just stopped fighting the Moors in Africa. Okay, that's all done. Immediately, that whole naval fleet sails to Florida and enacts martial law. So what does that tell you? Well, we're told that they were just fighting pirates. Well, I think that those pirates were Muslim, Arabic, North African, whatever the correct word is. When you see the pirate sword, it's an Arab scimitar. When you see the skull and bones, right, it's an occult symbol, of course. But pirate is pyrite, which comes from the root pyro. So a pirate is a pyrite, and pyro means fiery or red, flaming. Well, that's the same word as Phoenician, which means fiery, red, or flaming, like a phoenix, right? So that's where you get your God, what was the word? What was the word I just said? Not Phoenician. I forget.
I know. I'm all over right now.
Don't worry about it. You're all good. But you wanted to see some anchors. I'll pull up some anchors. And you wanted to see the Bok Tower. Okay.
If anybody got questions, you could hit the link. You hit the link and get on here.
You guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Alrighty. So it's funny. Most people would think Bok Tower, Seminoles, Moors, there's probably no connection, right? Well, one of the first pictures taken of Bok Tower had a tribe of Seminoles standing right in front of it, a whole family. This is what the tower looks like. I'll be right back. Let me go grab my phone.
So when you see the whole landscape that was created around this tower, the whole landscape around this tower is some stuff out of like a fairy tale or Avatar movie or something like that.
Yeah,
You know,
it's thousands of acres of orange groves, hundreds and hundreds of acres of orange groves. You can still see it on my screen?
yeah.
Okay, good. So it's made of pink marble and coquina. So coquina is limestone, blocks of limestone. And the pyramids in Giza are made from limestone. Many, many, many megalithic sites around the world made from limestone. This is when it had just been completed, allegedly completed, right? We don't know what the official story is on this. We're told that it was completed around 1927, 1928, but there wasn't really anything in that area. So we don't really have much to challenge that with. So this is the front door. And on that front door, which I think is a mix of brass and gold, or bronze and gold, I'm not sure. Basically, you have the scenes of Genesis depicted on the door, depicted on the tower too. There's another view, and this is actually like almost directly in the center of Florida. There's a sundial. And this sundial has the 12 signs of the zodiac written around it right there. Now, Edward Bok was a Libra. Pink is a color for Libras. He knew that. He colored his tower pink. See the serpent there telling the time. So these things are called gnomons or gnomon with a G. Gnomon. Gnomon. Now, that sounds a lot like gnome, right? Well, believe it or not, there was actually a gnome, a small human, discovered at this tower. And I did a video on that with my friend Juan. But here's Edward Bok, the man that allegedly built this tower. He was a Dutch immigrant. He wrote in this journal, basically. He was the publisher, editor, head editor of this magazine, Ladies' Home Journal. So you can see what that stuff turned into. Oh, God. Look at her. She's a witch. But
I just thought that was perfect to see that. Like, I was like, and then there she goes.
Yeah. But so just another thing. Here's a illustration from the book about the tower, and you see the fleur-de-lis. If you know what the fleur-de-lis is, you know it's a Merovingian symbol, Da Vinci Code type stuff. It's an old Merovingian insignia. It goes back to the Huguenots too, who, if you know Mind Unveiled, the channel Mind Unveiled, he did a good video about the Huguenots in Florida and how the Huguenot French Protestants might actually have been secret Muslims who brought Islam to Florida before Columbus. Now, I think Islam was here way before that, but there were Huguenots here before that too. But you have the fleur-de-lis here in the compass of this map here, and that wasn't uncommon. It's common to see fleur-de-lis on a map like that. But when you combine it with these other symbols, you have Poseidon, who's also Neptune, also goes by the word Enki or Anki, right? And then you have a giant alligator down there. And what's interesting is these ancient cities. You see Tallahassee, which was actually called, I have 3 different articles calling Tallahassee the Rome, Athens, and Jerusalem of ancient America and ancient Florida. Tallahassee, which is pretty much on the banks of the Apalachicola River. And the Apalachicola is the apple of Eden. In fact, that's where we get Appalachia. Appalachia is the apple from the Promised Land. But the only tree sticking out of this map is sticking out of Tarpon Springs, Florida. And Tarpon Springs, Florida is where we find the most anchors, right? So if Poseidon is an Anki, the word anchor actually comes from the word Enki, because we know he was a god of sea travel too.
Before you do that, somebody was asking in the chat.
Sure.
Someone was asking about
let
me just find the thing. Genome analysis versus DNA company analysis or whatever, or test or whatever. And somebody else asked if you can give some books or some sites or something, some links, some reference points for some people to do some research.
Sure. So as far as genomes, I'm not a real doctor. I'm not a medical doctor by any means. But something very interesting about the word genome is that the word genome is actually the same word as gnome with a G. Gnome, like a little man. A gnome is genome, same word. It's also gnosis. That's the word gnosis comes from the word gnome. And not only that, from gnome, gnome comes from the word jinn or genie. So a genie is a gnome, a genome. And we have a genie in our genome, if that makes sense. So I don't know much about the difference between studying DNA versus genomes, genetics. Howdy, welcome. Saw someone joined in, but
Peace.
Yeah, howdy.
Peace,
how y'all doing?
Yo, we're out here. How you doing?
Yes, sir. You already know, Cujo. I appreciate your efforts, man. You always, you've been doing this for a long time, man. So I salute you.
Honest to you, Moor. You have question or comment?
Yeah, Dr. Longo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I pretty much appreciate the information, and I wanted to ask you, like you familiar with Tartaria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tartaria was old Scythia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we know in that old, Scythia is where you get names like Scotland.
Yes.
Scotland and Scandinavia and all that. And we know Scythia is Scotia, the Princess Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just, tying in that whole Moorish connection. And the people that we call like Vikings would have been the Russ and the Danes, right?
Yep. Good job.
So Eric the Red, I wanted to touch on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Eric the Red basically founded America because they say his son Leif Erikson made that final journey. And what I'm saying is they call him Eric the Red Like, we know that red could mean copper colored people. It's just like saying brunette doesn't only refer to hair color, it refers to skin tone. You know, when they say swarthy, they know swarthy is skin tone, but they'll say people have swarthy hair also.
Now, a thing about indigo, Indian, that's a great point. You touched on like 3 really, really good points. I'll start right there with the skin color. India is not a place. Hindustan was a place, but India is a skin type, and India and indigo are 2 separate things. So this is why they had everyone stop saying Indian, because it's racist, right? Or it's mean. And then they have everyone start saying indigenous. Well, what they're getting us to do by saying indigenous is we're losing the meaning of what indigenous means versus Indian. Indigenous is not the same thing as Indian. Indian means red skin. Indi or Andi, which means Ignatius, or what's the word? I can't think of the other ond word, and I'm thinking of, but it's fiery, Ignatius. So indigo is indigenous, indigo. So when you see indigenous, that should mean dark skinned people, like indigo skinned. When you see the word Indian, you're right, that means red skin types, red skin. And that could be interpreted as copper. That could also be interpreted as Phoenician red, which would be like this red paint. Because the Vikings that were coming from the North Pole were so white that when they left the ice for the first time, they were so white, they had no sun resistance. So they had to use red ochre paint, because the red ochre paint acts as a natural sunscreen. So, black people don't usually need sunscreen or any sun protection.
Wow.
These white Vikings definitely would have needed some. But to talk about Eric, let's just look at the word America. Eric is right there in the word America. So, there's so many interpretations. I think God weaves everything in perfectly together. I don't think we need to say, Amerigo Vespucci versus Eric the Great versus America versus, and just pit them all against each other. I think you have to find the thread and just pull at that common thread, because it's right there in the name, America. And actually, the Amorites that we were talking about earlier, well, there you have your Amorica too. The land of the Amorites was called Amuru or Amuri. Well, that's America, right? You also have Amalek. If you change that L to an R, which you can do in many languages, Amalek is Amalek, America, right? So it all weaves in wonderfully, and you're absolutely right. The Rus are the red people from the top. So the Rus Vikings probably would have been white-skinned people that had never mixed and were so sun sensitive that they needed red paint to cover themselves. And when they started mixing in with Indian people or Native American people, also we should look at the word native too. Native has the same root word as nautical, which means seafaring people. A mariner might come from the word mariner, and actually the word mar or ocean might come from the word moor, because a mooring stone is what we're going to look at. Some mooring stones here in a sec, the anchors. But a mooring stone, or to moor something, is to dock it, right? Is to tie it up. So you have all these cities around the world called Venices. Venice is the same word as Venice with a PH. So this is how they take the same word and they'll stamp it. with different languages so that the spelling is obscured, but phonetically it's the same word. So Venice with a V, Venice, comes from Phoenicia, PH, Phoenicia. Well, up where the Vikings come from, you have Finland, Phoenicia, right? Finland. In, like you just pointed out, Scotia or Scotia, Princess Scotia, who came from Egypt or Canaan and went to the British Isles, Scotland, Ireland, England. From them, you also have, oh God, what was I going to say? Oh man, I forgot. Smoking too much
something
weed.
to do with I know you just said Scythia of Canaan or Egypt.
Yeah. Shit. No, I lost it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but people don't really understand the greatness of the old Scythian Empire.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. So Scythian is Scottish, right? You pointed that out, and you're absolutely correct. Well, Scythian is essentially goes from what you could call the Ottoman or the Byzantine Empire, which is kind of Greek, even to Germany, like the Hun. The Hun were in Germany, all the way to Japan, right? And some people would say America. Well, when you look at the Seminole, who are Scottish, the most famous Seminole ever was Osceola, right? Osceola. Well, Osceola, he was actually half Scottish, or we're told he was half Scottish, whatever that means. Well, Seminoles use Scottish clothing, a lot of Scottish names like Mick and Mac. There's a lot of, Miccosukee. The Seminoles go by the word Miccosukee. That's a Celtic name, Miccosukee. Well, then you have up in the northeast, you have the Mic-Mac. That's one tribe, the Mic-Mac. That's Celtic. You have these, a lot of people say the Cherokee and different tribes are influenced by Welsh and different Celtic languages. Well, to go back to Tartaria, the Seminoles use a Scottish type of fabric and design called the tartan. So Seminoles use tartans, and they wear tartan around themselves. So there's your Tartarians. My first video on the Seminoles I called the Lost Tribe of Tartaria, because that's what they are. That's why Andrew Jackson, our president, went after them so hard, because they were like the holy grail of unlocking this old Moorish Phoenician history. Because America is a Phoenician land. It's a Canaanite land, a pre-Hebrew people. That's why we're given it in such a bad light, and it's so obscured. We were given Hebrew religion, and you can argue about what Hebrew means. That's fine, but what's for sure is that Hebrew came after Phoenician. So everything that went through the Hebrew to the Greek to the Roman was actually kind of hostile towards Phoenician history, because they were jealous that they weren't the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were better sailors. They knew more stuff. They went farther. They had more goods. They were taller. They were smarter. They were superior in every way. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was gonna add about the the great thing that Noble Drew Ali did. Like, he didn't let us get wrapped up in the word Hebrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know Hebrew is a bastardized language. It's a conglomerate of the Phoenician languages,
mm-hmm.
right? So essentially, it's all Canaanite, huh? So
mm-hmm.
Noble Drew Ali literally told us we're Canaanites. so that we could tap into the true source instead of trying to find Hebrew history, because there's really no such thing, you know. But to get into the real essence of history, you can start. We all study the Canaanite language, or those Canaanite regions of people, these Afro-Asiatic people, you know.
No, wonderfully put. Good point. That makes me think of how with phonetics comes from the word Phoenician. Well, the word calligraphy comes from the word Kali, or the word Caliph. So calligraphy,
which means black. Yeah, Kali means black.
Yep, Kali, California, where Kali was a black goddess. She was the
caliphate. Yep.
So, and the first people, like I said earlier, the very, very first people that Columbus bumped into when he got here we're told that it was Taino people. And that's true. There's truth to that. But Taino is just one small tribe on one island, or a couple islands. The Carib people is the greater cultural identity that all of these tribes went along to. So, you know, with history, when it serves, when I say they, the rulers, you know, the people that rule the world, when they are redrawing maps and renaming people, if it serves their agenda to take a whole region and make it an artificial country that has no cultural truth behind it, they'll do that. They also will do the opposite, where if there is a unified people, they will start representing them historically as fractured, so that they are teaching that they were the larger, unified, stronger, superior, older people, because they don't like having competitors. And the Phoenicians are the biggest competitors. It's the biggest competition there is, because we have a largely Roman history. There's no question about that. We have a largely Roman Empire history, then a Roman Catholic history. So those are two big revisions right there, rewrites. Then you have all the Alexandrias burning down. You have all the book burnings during the Middle Ages. They were burning books for firewood in the Middle Ages, because no one could read. So what use is a book? So, you know, yeah.
Can I ask how long is that? What does they say? They say beneath the Vatican, there's the
vaults.
Yeah. They saying it's miles and miles and miles long, right? Like, I've always kind of thought that I don't think they burnt none of those books, and they still have them. You know what I mean? Like, what else can you be doing with miles and miles long of a library? You know?
I don't know, but you're absolutely right. It's, you know, what is the you know, kind of what we were talking about before. Where did everything go wrong? Where did the world go wrong? Well, in ancient times, you had a caste system. And the caste system was not a hierarchy. It was a system of responsibility. So the people at the top had the most responsibility, right? Rulers, holy men. They had to burden themselves with the troubles of many people. So they rightfully earned their places at the top of the pyramid. The pyramid is a structure whether we like it or not. You know, there's always going to be leaders and there's always going to be followers. So when you have this ancient hierarchy system, it typically went as follows. You had the laborers and the unskilled and the people that couldn't read down at the bottom. Then you had the merchant class, right? The merchant class. Then above them you had the warrior class, or the knight class. And then above them you had the royalty, or the nobility. And then above them you had the Brahmins, right? And the Brahmins, or the religious caste at the top, you know, that's actually what Phoenician means originally. That's actually what Hebrew means originally. That's actually what Christian means originally. All these terms start out as occupations. It's something you do. You practice being a Christian, a Phoenician, a Moor. You practice this. It's not an identity that you get and, oh, I don't believe in it. Oh, my parents were Christian and, oh, I just don't believe in it, you know? That's how we look at it today. But kind of like I was saying, it's how these cities work. These are different occupations, and they took away the system. And what happened was somewhere along the line, probably in Babylon, probably that's why they tell us, this is why they tell us civilization started, right? Civilization started in Babylon. Civilization didn't start in Babylon. Domestication started in Babylon. Domestication of the human species. So mankind started getting domesticated and enslaved in Babylon. And that's why the first cities start coming up in Babylon. And that's why they tell us that's the cradle of civilization. That's not true. It's not true whatsoever. But I see we're joined by someone else.
So you said Babylon is the cradle of civilization according to, you know, them?
Well, they tell us it's Iraq, Iran, Syria, not Syria, sorry. Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, and parts of Israel, and maybe a little bit of Turkey and Armenia. But yeah.
So basically that's where the Garden of Eden was, right? Is what they're saying.
That's what they're saying. I don't believe that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it could be right here in America, the Garden of Eden. But what I'm just saying is, you know, going off what they say. So so that would mean, you know, Babylon, coming from the word Babylon or Babel, meaning like the gateway of El, gateway to the gods.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, was they trying to say the Garden of Eden was the gateway to the gods? Or it's just the tower itself? I don't know if it's the tower that they were building was supposed to be the gateway to the gods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of strange. And then, you know, like put it like this, Babylon, since we use that word in English, you know, we got the word baby, and then we got lion, L-O-N, meaning lion, right? So it's literally the baby lion.
Mm-hmm. Then we
got London, Don meaning master. So we got the master lion, and we over here, we like all of our life we've been crucifying the baby lion, but nobody crucifies the master lion.
Mm-hmm. That's great. You know, that makes me think of Ponce de Leon, who's the first guy to discover the continental United States officially, right? Well, let's look at his name, Ponce de Leon. That's the pounce of the lion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The lion
Napoleon
pounced on America and handed it over to the Castilian Spanish, who had just defeated the Moors in a war in Granada. So 1491-92, they defeat the Moors in Granada, and Columbus immediately leaves for the Americas, the Amoricas, to go fight the Amorites in a different land. They won that battle. Now they're going to America to keep up the battle. You know, they have to keep up the war because they can't let the Moors regroup in America. So you could either say that they had escaped to America, or it's also very likely that the Moors were here in America much before, much longer before Columbus got here.
Pardon the introduction.
I saw you earlier talk about excuse my bad. Go ahead, Cujo.
Oh yeah, let me just get brother Al-Jameer in here and brother Kasir before just hold your thought, D. Al-Jameer, you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, Moore, we could hear you.
Peace and honors to everyone on the panel. Great build as always. Great camaraderie. Appreciate the enlightenment from everyone. Yeah, I mean, not to just cut what was in the middle, but maybe we could do this in a few minutes, let everybody get back to the conversation. But Grand Sheik, I sent you a few different articles and pictures. My internet's not that legendary, So I sent them to you because I think you'll be able to share it, and then I could just speak on it. A lot of these articles of information are pertaining to the conversation we're having, and I would just love to get Brother Longo's opinion on some of these just information. Few of this stuff I just came across last week, but I don't know if you want to do that now, or we could do that like in a few minutes, get back to the conversation.
Yeah, let me just get Brother Kasir, and then I'm gonna pull these images up, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
Islam Nobles, Islam Dr. Longo.
Islam.
I didn't even know y'all knew about this noble because I was looking at him like about 2 or 3 months now. Put him on to some other nobles, and we've been watching all the videos. And my family comes from down Florida, and my other side of the family comes from Georgia. So everything he's saying is on point. And I was watching. I went back to I seen a video y'all was on. I had one of your friends on, and he made a mention of I was talking about Noble Drew Ali. And he said, you said, how long are we going to take back the line of this Tartaria? And he said, Tartaria is actually the line that we draw to find the Moorish Empire based off of what they did and, with the Quran in Rome and that type of thing, like the whole Holy Roman Empire being in so-called Spain. Now, about Spain and Portugal and France and Britain, I noticed something about this for the past 2 years now. If you look over in the lands that they call Spain, Leon, Castile, whatever, Andalusia, we could even do it to include Portugal. Those lands are nowhere near as big as when you look over on this side of the world and type in Portuguese Empire. It includes majority of America. British Empire, majority of America and parts of Africa. But the small little isles up there, they want us to believe that that's real Scotland. That's real England. But if you hit empire behind it, it brings you to America with way vaster land. And it drew me into more studying on with the Eden thing. If we take into consideration that what if the conquest from the East is a story that was made up and only done in plays called burlesque degrees, like what's it called? The Moorish romance. That's the only place I see that's the first story that they wrote in play where they make this Morocco of the West. Now, when I go back, I see there's a circumnavigation of the globe by Francis Drake. He had to go to the Ottomans to get the Furman's passport to be able to travel. They came over here with gunpowder, right? But the Chinese, so-called Cathay, had the gunpowder. So if they left from the West to cross over Pacific, wouldn't they be crossing the Red Sea, which Cortez called the Red Sea over there in the Gulf of California? If he came all the way over on the east side, how did the West Coast get a place called the Mer de Cortez, which is actually the Verde Bahilma, which is the Red Sea? And that's in the West.
Facts. That's on point.
Oh, yeah.
So are we looking at the Eden and Granada? El Granada, that's also in the West. And then the 7 cities of Gosabola and with the Shibalba, is that also in the West of the East?
Yep, Quivira.
Yeah. There. Oh, and there's more Islam Noble. Our Young Future. I'm a transition to what you were gonna go into because I already know where we're going. I'm gonna let him ask it to you, but we know about a couple tribes that tie directly into the Moorish Empire and the Moorish tribes or the Moorish nations that they don't really speak of. One of the ones I'm gonna give up. I won't go into the ones you're gonna do, no, but I'm gonna do one that I found. They're called the Moor Talking. I think they would pronounce it Moroccan. The Moroccans were the first people that Sir Francis. Yeah. Oh, see, I already know. The first people that Sir Francis John Smith ran into, and then they actually were having a battle with the Rappahannocks. He spoke out. Supposedly, he spoke out the first treaty between the Rappahannocks and Moroccan, but they never mentioned the Moroccan. They call them all Powhatan together in Virginia territory, but they don't mention the Moroccans in New England, and they actually had their own nation too. So I'll just leave it there and give it to our Young Future Islam, y'all.
And the Malungians, hey, Dr. Longo, have you ever heard, because you spoke on the Huguenots, and the Huguenots, they have a branch, they have an arm in this Moorish history in America. Have you ever heard of the Malungians? You on mute, brother.
Sorry. They're from the Southeast United States?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I don't know a ton. I don't know a ton about them, but
Dragoons.
I've heard about them, of course.
I have the thing up, brother Algernon.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is good. I have something really good to go after this. But yeah.
Yeah. So this is just the front. This is like from a magazine article from like the 1980s. ECC was speaking about the Malungians. As you can see, the title are these blue-eyed, dark-skinned people descendants of America's lost colony. Excuse me,
Yep.
of America's lost first settlers. And I'm sure you've heard of the depictions of Abraham Lincoln being depicted in cartoon as a Moor with a Moorish pirate. Have you ever saw that cartoon picture before?
Yeah. Well, I've heard the theory that he's Moorish, you know, transatlantic DNA, of course. Yeah.
Facts. Greshi, if you want, I have a you could just click forward and then we could just read this up a little bit because it's pertaining to everything that we're saying right now. The Welsh, Carthaginian, it all is all playing a part. Cool. I got it on mine. Let me pull it up on mine real quick. Yeah, put it on mine so I can see it. Give me 1 second. I'll read it from mine.
Yeah, and when you see that Melungeon, you literally got the word engine. So you know, like we say engines.
Engine. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
Like
That's
Indian.
Don't say that. That's rude. Don't say that. Hide that history. You know.
Yeah, these are melanated engines. That's what they're saying. You know what I mean? Melungeons.
Okay.
And engine is closer to Ignatius. Ignatius or Ignish or Igni. Igni means fire.
Fire in Latin.
Yeah.
Agni. So Ignatius, indigenous, is largely that same word.
Okay.
And I take it back to Finican or Phoenician.
Oh yeah, and Finnegan. Finnegan, thank you. Finnegan is how you get the Phoenician tying into the Celtic. Because if you know about the Creek and the Seminole, what are they? They're North African mixed with Celtic. So right there, you have your Phoenician crossover, because the Phoenicians, their empire was North Africa to Ireland. And like you were saying, how when you look at the empires, like Portugal, for example, Portugal was just this tiny little sliver, but its colonial territories were, you know, as large as Russia, pretty much. Well, believe it or not, they actually give us the same story, or try to give us the same story with the Phoenicians. They tell us that the Phoenician homeland was just this tiny little strip next to Israel and Lebanon, Tyre, Acre, Cyprus.
Yeah,
right?
Sidon.
Well, what if I told you that Cyprus is where you get the cypress tree in America?
Cypress, yeah.
You better believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Noah's Ark.
We studied the
Noah's Ark.
tree and all that.
And Arkansas, which has the most biblical city names of any place in the world, and America especially, Arkansas has the most biblical city names. Well, that's because it's the land of the arks and the Kansas, the Kansas, the Khans. It's the ark, the Khans, the Canaanites, the Canaans, and that's Arkansas has some of the most Mississippi coastline along the river Isis. So that's why you get all those biblical names. It has the most biblical names of any state by far.
Yeah, they got
we take that name Arkansas back to Uak Shaktun, Akpakal, and that has Mayan fonts in it, like Ak
implication
being a turtle and Uak Shaktun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Washington.
Hey, Gopher's Wood.
Go back to Washington.
Like Arkansas, Gopher's Wood. Gopher's Wood is what Noah built the ark out of. You know, Florida also has it.
Gopher wood only grows in one place naturally, and that's the Apalachicola River of Eden. of Florida. Appalachia is the apple of Eden. It's a small part of the Florida Gulf Coast up into Georgia a little bit, and it's actually, believe it or not, here I'll show you the four rivers of Eden. There's a lot of actually no, you keep showing that. I can explain it well. There's four rivers. There's the only four-headed river system, equal four-headed river system in the world that flows east. That flows east is in Apalachicola River area. You have the Gihon, Pison, Euphrates, and Tigris, or Hiddekel, are the Flint, the Fish Pond, I forget the other two, but they're up there in Florida. And the lake that they feed into, this is no coincidence. The lake they feed into is Seminole Lake.
Yo, that's crazy.
Seminole Lake is where the four rivers of Eden flow into.
You know what's funny about that is that when you take it into that measure, you then think, are they talking about the people when they say Seminole, or are they speaking about the rivers that run away into each other?
Yeah, and exactly,
it's
running
always the land.
It's running away, like Seminole with an O, Seminole. But then it's also the first river, the Seminole River, the first ever, right? The seminary, Seminole.
The old semen. Yeah, because it's like saying that's where life was birthed.
Exactly, and that's where the Gulf Stream comes from. The Gulf Stream is it's essentially the semen of the planet, and Florida is the dick, if that makes sense. If that makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense. It makes
because the Gulf Stream comes out of the Gulf of Mexico, and it fertilizes the rest of the world with warm water. And when the ice ages come and kill everything in Europe, it's only the small places that the Gulf Stream chooses to survive. So this is like the father. Scotland,
well,
yeah.
We call it the mother.
The Gulf Stream goes directly to those areas.
To where the Phoenicians went. So the Phoenicians would have used this Gulf Stream like a highway to go from Finland, Iceland, England, North Africa, and of course Florida, where it comes from. So Florida would have been on their map. And they would have all been arguing and trying to keep Florida for themselves because it's the best climate in the world, and they would have known that. They would have been fighting for it.
Yeah.
And then with the natural. Go ahead.
Not my bad. I was just going to say the fact that all of these ways of travel, like we coming from the equatorial wind currents. You feel me? Like you say, the Gulf Stream is taking you up north. So like you have no choice but to go to Florida. You feel me? Because the Gulf Stream is going to go straight from Mexico all the way, like you say, Finland and places.
They've thrown glass bottles. They've thrown tracking devices off of the coast of Florida, and they went up to England, down to Africa, and then back across to the Caribbean, and then back to Florida. So this is also the slave trade is largely the Gulf Stream.
The same path hurricanes take, like the equatorial wind current.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, hurricane.
Well, real quick. Let me jump in because y'all gonna keep going. The slave trade. Can we break that down to being 1491's Granada Treaty? The surrender of Granada was really because they said that 300,000 people came to the north only, but that's when Nicholas. I think it was Nicholas. He said that only 300,000 people left. So-called.
Yeah. Can I share my screen and show you guys something?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I've got two things. So right there, before we hop off of that, are these blue-eyed African descendants? Well, keep that in mind, guys. Blue-eyed African descendants. America's long lost, whatever it says. Well, I'm about to show you something pretty crazy. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Charlie Smith. Charlie Smith was born in Liberia, in Africa, and sold into slavery at about 12 or 14 years old. Okay?
The slave. No, go ahead.
He lived to 140 years old. And he's special. He was sold into slavery, then came to America and Florida. And as soon as far back as he can remember, he was an orange picker. So as soon as he got here, he started picking oranges. Well, then the Civil War happened, and he was freed, and he decided, well, I like picking oranges. It's a good job. Florida's wonderful. It's perfect. And he just decided to keep picking oranges. And it kept him healthy. And those oranges kept him, that citrus kept him clean on the inside.
Vitamin C.
He lived to 140 years old. And of course, they try and attack his theories. They're not his theories. They attack his story. But I'll tell you why. It has to do with his theories. He had one particular theory that I think you guys will see can get you in a lot of trouble. But why I'm talking about him is he was actually a light-eyed African man. He had
we called them the moon-eyed people. The Cherokees called them the moon-eyed people. We
hey, what you know about that, Kathir? What you know about
that? Bro,
the moon-eyed people.
It go deep because that shit in my family.
Well, let's look at.
When we seen that they had different eyes than us, we start killing them off, even though they was the same shade as us. And a lot of elders, a lot of y'all Moors, y'all got elders in y'all family that got the moon eyes now. Like when you look around their eye circle, it look like it's turning blue around the outside.
Yeah.
He had it deep though.
Yeah. I think it's no coincidence that this guy lived as old as he did, and he probably had some of this special DNA.
And take it back to the movie Dune too.
Oh, Dune too, of course. What's Dune? Dune is Arrakis. Arrakis is Arcadia. It's Iraq. It's Uruk. Uruk is the name of
the same coastal regions of the spice trade, spice melon, melon.
Exactly. Wonderful. And the melanin is what disappears from your eyes when they turn blue. And the spice traders, some of the Vikings especially, who lived in the north but traded down south, they would have had no pigment in their eyes. They would have had completely blue, like a husky, right? Like a husky's eyes. Well, the moon-eyed. Well, just real quick, last thing I wanted to say was moon-eye. The moon-eyed people are and I'm not saying this in a bad way, Illuminati, moon-eyed people. Also, Ammonite, the Ammonite, Amun-Ra, immunized people, right? Immunized, right? They're trying to immunize us all right now, aren't they? Immunized.
Yep.
So it's all in the phonetics.
Yep.
But this guy was really cool. So
wait a minute more. You're going too fast. That's crazy. Like a moon symbol is an eye, but it represents the moon.
Yep. Yeah. And when you see a glimmer, in an eye, it's like a crescent moon.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's
that
goes
Paul
in
Mooning. Paul Mooning.
That goes in this.
But let me tell you the biggest thing. Sorry to talk over. I just got to get this out. Okay, with the moon-eyed people, this moon-eyed man, let me tell you what the biggest thing he did that got him into trouble was. That got people started attacking his life story and saying that it was all fake. You know what this man, Charlie Smith, did when he was invited? When he was about 115 or 120, 100 and something, they invited him to come watch the original moon landing at NASA because he lived very close by, right? In Florida, Space Coast, right? Well, talking about your moon-eyed man right here, you want to know what he told them when he was invited publicly? Ain't no man gonna land on no moon. That's what he said.
Prophecy.
Now isn't that incredible? So that's when he kind of got canceled. That was in like the 60s or 70s, early 70s, and they canceled him for that because So they stopped promoting him as one of the oldest men, and they started calling him a liar. They started saying that he was making up his whole life story about getting enslaved and being way older. They were saying that he was trying to say he was a slave at some point. They were trying to say that he wanted to be a slave, if you know what that mean. You know what I mean? Like he was only 20 years old or so, or maybe not even born when slavery was outlawed. So they're trying to say that he was trying to say, oh, no, I was a slave too, so that he would kind of get like welfare, essentially. But if you know about this man's story, he picked oranges every day of his life for over 100 years. So he wasn't looking for any handouts. And ex-slaves of that era were not eager to make shit up about themselves to get attention. They were trying to keep their heads down and not get into trouble. So,
and then I will believe if nobody, we never got reparations per se, but the people who left to go over to the when they followed the Indian Removal Act, not the Negro, but the Indian Removal Act, the people who went over to the Oklahoma, they received those lands that they took was confiscated by the military. That's called the Special Field Order 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they got given the 40 acres and the mule and stuff. So anybody that stayed over in the East wasn't included in that. He was in the East side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he wouldn't need the whole what became reparations. He wouldn't even have been.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the only tribe ever that never officially surrendered, we're told, the only official tribe to never surrender. Well, I don't know about that, so maybe I'm out of the loop on that. But we're told
same people.
Okay, well, we're told in Florida that the Seminole. We're told.
Yeah, I was about to say they'll say Seminole, but that's all the groups are the same people because
that's
we dealing with Fort Negro,
officially.
Right?
Yeah.
Fort Negro.
That diaspora would be called a Morgatti Kaken. That's the Morgatti Kaken diaspora that reaches from Kanata, Kanandasaga, where Grand Sheik is at, all the way down to where you at, Longo, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Same blooded people under various names.
Yeah. You also have, believe it or not, Kennedy, this old Irish name, Kennedy, actually stems from some of the same origin. Now, obviously, the Kennedys aren't black, but somewhere along the line, Ireland was a mixing point between.
Hey,
yeah,
it's ill that you say that because a lot of the prominent Malungian authors are, guess what their surname is? Kennedy. So this is how divine it is. This is how divine it is. Like that article we was just reading. That article we was just reading. Feel me? Well, we didn't get to read it, but it was talking about that sister right there. It was talking about the Kennedys in that region. But yeah, I would love to just read that just for the public and just to get your view on it on some of that information real quick.
Good work.
Hey, and the name Kennedy.
Oh, and real quick before you read it, I got a quick jump. When we look at the language that the Seminoles are speaking, they call their language Afro-Caribbean Creole, and they call that a Gullah language. So, like now we can see more. So who are the people that was, included in the Seminole? Because we know Seminole wasn't really a tribe, but a tag for runaways. So what tribe were you running away from? So that's the first thing. Like, were they running away from Creeks? Were they running away from Cherokee? A lot of them were runaway Creeks and Cherokee and Choctaw.
Yeah.
So like you start to see all the 5 recognized tribes in these same people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it all goes. Well, let's read that. You wanted to pull that up. If you want to read that, let's read that.
That's why I told Grand Sheik, I don't know if you want to do all of this now, because I got like a few things that I actually want to pull up. That's why I told him we could do this now or we could do it towards the end.
I'm just a guest.
There's like
you guys.
more than one.
Yeah, you might as well get it in right
No, we
now.
might as well get it in because I'm gonna just all I got is the pirates to add in, so I'm gonna just punch in where I can fit it.
All of this is all. There you go, Kasir. Thank you, hermano. There you go. All this is gonna be tied in. So let's just read it real quick. Who are the Malungians? Baffled researchers are trying to unlock the mystery of a race of blue-eyed, dark-skinned people known as Malungians who have lived in the Appalachian Mountains for hundreds of years and whose origins are completely unknown. The group, found in Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, has been in America since before the Mayflower, yet its members look unlike any known Indian tribe. Experts have offered a wide array of theories into who the ancestors of the Malungians might be, ranging from 13th century Welsh explorers to the legendary lost tribe of Israel. So, surprise researchers also believe that President Abraham Lincoln, who had dark complexion, high cheekbones, and other typical traits of the group, was of Malungian stock. So we're just going to skip over to some of the, I guess you could say, theories, for the lack of better words, to where this admixture, where the stock of people tie into. One of them is the Lost Colony. Sir Walter Raleigh, Sir Walter Raleigh, of the Roanoke Island, North Carolina, about 1587. But the first supply ship that they found was deserted. The only, excuse me, I'm trying to let me zoom in a little bit, make it easier for me.
Just as you're pulling that up, I wanted to point out Tennessee is Tunisia. Tennessee, Tunis, Tunisia, Tennessee. Just instead of along. Yeah, you guys see. But continue.
Now I like that. That's a good. Like you said, it's all in the words. It's all in the etymology. Moors, we say that all the time. It says the only claim to the settlers. The only. Basically, I can't read it. This is. I did the best that I can as far as the clip art, but the only claim to the settlers was the word Croatan, the name of the local Indian tribe, carved into a deer post. Some historians believe that the starving settlers were forced to abandon the colony and joined up with Native Americans, and hence that's where the Malungians came. So that's one of the stories. The second one is Welsh explorers. In 1170, a Welsh prince known as Madoc sailed off with ships to an uncertain fate. Some researchers believe that he managed to reach America and the Malungians descend from that crew. However, Kennedy notes that the Malungians do not look Welsh. The lost tribe of
what does that really mean though?
Well, there's two different types of Welsh. We could be talking about because the Welsh 1100s may not look like the Welsh of 1980. So we got to also keep that in mind as well too.
I see Welsh pop up like when you look up the etymology of Jew. One of the people it say Welsh walnut is one of them Waldoon, but Welsh is one of the people groups. They take you back to like Wallachia.
And all of this is double and triple connected. It's connected with Chandragupta Maurya, his descendants, his ancestors is known as the Moonite people over there.
Over there.
Now
they're known as the Moonite people over there.
Where you said Prince Madoc.
Yeah.
So, are you guys familiar with the story of Og?
Not that name. I haven't heard that name before.
Biblical traveler who disappeared in the West, basically traveled to the West. Well, Og is Mad Dog. Matok is Mad Og, like a mad dog.
Oh, Mad
right?
Og. Okay.
That's where that term kind of comes from, I bet. But I have, if I can show you guys something, I have a great article that I want to get in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we were talking about the Ottoman earlier, and you know, Rome is where a lot of this stuff kind of went wrong, right? Where Rome is where a lot of things took a bad direction. And we were saying it was Babylon before that, and then Rome. Well, Rome is what a lot of Western Europe fell into. Eastern Europe, much of it sided and turned into the Byzantine Empire and the Ottoman. And these are kind of some of your real life Tartarians. And like we were talking about with Nicaragua, well, Guatemala is both of the names, two names for Buddha, because Gautama was the Buddha's real name, and then Maya was his mother's name. Yeah, Guatemala. So that's your Maya too, your Mayan civilization, Buddha's mother.
But Ethiopia
right
called
here,
the Maya, and you know how Maya means mystery or magic.
Yeah,
magic,
illusion.
Water, all that.
Mm-hmm. So I brought that up to think of like what those could have been, because you know they call it the Ethiopian blue. I look at a lot of depictions of the ancient Malay or whatever, the ancient Malay scripts.
Yeah.
And it'll show where Ethiopia is as like forms of Hanuman, like a monkey king, but they'll have blue uniforms on, and everybody over here had red and orange. Red up north and South America was orange.
Yeah, that's why Ethiopia is India. It's Upper India.
Yeah.
Or basically India is Lower Ethiopia. That's what.
They both have samosas too. A lot of times it sounds ridiculous, but a lot of times you can follow the food and you can follow the culinary, the culinary angle.
Yeah.
But
so they could build like the mirror lands and have the same foods for the same stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And so what we're looking at right here is this is such a big nail in the coffin, because we're trying to argue that there was a Greek or Arab. And where does Greek culture mix with Islamic culture? Well, that's the Byzantine.
Tartaria.
That's exactly Tartaria, Byzantine, Ottoman.
That
is. We're only given the Roman side of things.
Right.
Rome split into two entities, and the one that went east had a lot more of that juicy old world information that Rome kind of just swept under the rug. And
so would it make sense if we say the world is following Germanized understanding and not the Russian side of it?
Yes,
because Russia keeps a lot of our stuff alive. They still got the pictures of us dark skinned, the pale ones mixed together. And I like when I see that, because then I know that's more of what happened in real life.
Mm-hmm.
This whole racist thing that throws everything off, because it doesn't make sense of like how generations can build buildings like that. You need many people all on the same time, not just one group. It's crazy.
Yes. And when Columbus, I'm coming out with a new video that's called The True Fertile Crescent, and it's going to have pretty much a lot of what we're talking about. And I have an article that explicitly says when Columbus got here, Columbus was the brown-skinned person.
Mm-hmm.
And in America, you already had black and white. So it was actually the Spaniards who were the shortest people in America and the most mixed. Well, they're the ones that try and tell the Seminoles that they're mixed. You're the mixed people. What does Mexico mean after all? Mexico, right? Mesoamerican, mestizo, right? These words,
Mexico.
Okay, yes. Olmec is the old Mexico. Yes, wonderful. Now, how we can prove that is right here in the language family, the Mesoamerican language family. That is Nicaragua, Costa Rica. This is Mexico, the Aztec, the Maya. These languages that they speak that we pretty much have no concept of because they were all genocided and rewritten and completely first they were Spanicized, then they were Anglicized. So you have very, very little of these roots coming through, but the ones that do come through are extremely telling, like this one. I just showed you guys a map at the beginning showing Florida to be a Turkish, Ottoman, Greek colony. Well, in Mexico, you have the language family is the Ottomangian language family. And we're told that those officially have nothing to do with each other. What else do you see in here? Chinan Tekken. China. So, Buddha comes from China essentially. And you have China in Mexico. You have Maya in Mexico.
Yeah, you got Tekken. Tekken Uman is a Mayan god.
Yep. Tilapia come from China as well. That's also the same.
We have to add in too. I was just thinking about it. Basically the Palatine Board. I mean, not the Palatine Boards. Who was it? The Muscovites over there in there it is.
Muscovy.
The story of Prester John, right? And when you go into the story of Prester John and you start to study, where they say he was at, they talk about the three Indias, one being Ethiopia, the one being Hindustan, and the other being West, the Americas. They call these the three Indias when you study Prester John.
Yeah.
And it gets that goes deep and deep because John and David in the Bible are friends, companions. In real life, Prester John is who I think is supposed to be Tugaru, I think is his name, or it's like one of Genghis Khan's I think his uncle, and then Genghis Khan, they call him King David and King George or Saint George. So when you follow those stories and the David and the Israelites and all that, and then Saint George, where they said that Saint George did with the Moorish, you can find a story of like the Mongolians, which would be the Mauryan Empire, coming over to the Americas in the 13th century. They said it was about conquering here and fighting, but I found it's a lot of history that you see in the west side of America and the linking of the west. I mean, the linking of the ancient, supposedly China and the ancient Californians.
Jade down with the Olmecs. What's the Olmecs doing with jade masks? What they doing with jade?
That's what I'm saying. Or like why are they over there?
Real quick, we were just looking at that language family, and as you guys pointed out, the Tech, the China, another one of those subfamilies was actually called the Amuzgo. Well,
that sounds like Muskogee.
It is Muskogee, Amuzgo, but it's also Amazigh from North Africa. Amazigh.
Well, Amazigh is another word for Amazigh. That's just Yamasee. That's just Yamasee. That's just a variant of the word Yamasee.
And then they did the Amazon when they took all the Zay out.
Yeah.
Now, talk about the Amazon. I think it was you. I think you, D, brought up the Scythians, and the Scythians. When we talk about Greek and the Romans, we think that they're like the top of the top, right? The highest of society back in the day. Well, that's actually far from the truth, because the Greeks, they were afraid of two people, the Phoenicians and the Scythians. And we're told that the Scythians and the Phoenicians were separate, but they were actually the same exact people. The Phoenicians was the navy. The Scythians were the cavalry. on the
That's right.
horses, on the horses
That's
and the
right.
camels.
The
And
elephants.
elephants too, right? The Carthaginians brought elephants into Europe, and this is why they find elephant bones all over Europe. Not mammoth, not mastodon, elephant bones. But every time they find elephant bones, they can just say, "Oh, those are Carthaginian war elephants." So we know Carthage brought, and Carthage is Phoenician, of course, for those that don't know. The Phoenicians brought elephants pretty much wherever they went. There's elephants in North Africa. There's elephants in Asia. They're different species. In Florida, you had one of the largest herds of elephants in the world in the 1920s. The Barnum Bailey and the Ringling Brothers, Ringling Brother Circus.
Everything.
Ringling Brother Circus. What was the circus's purpose in Tartaria in destroying the old world? To get rid of all the fucking animals. Because if you just got rid of a Moorish empire in America, well, we know that there's all this Moorish architecture. We know there's all these Moorish looking people with the turbans, and the fezzes, the tartans from Scotland, all these things that don't belong on Native Americans. Well, those people would have had animals that went along with their lifestyle. But we're told that Columbus brought the first horses and that there was no horses in America. We're also told there was no camels in America. Well, if you stay tuned for the video that I'm going to release, I have an article that has camel teeth being discovered from South Carolina down to Florida, old camel teeth. And this is how the circus served its purpose. The circus, anytime they find an elephant bone or a camel bone in America, now they can just say, "Oh, that was the circus. Don't worry about that. No need to look at that. That was just an escaped circus animal," right? So they put all the Moors' camels and their elephants, they put them in the circus and they worked them to death because the goal was never to run a business. The circuses actually lost a lot of money in the end. And the circuses were created as, did you guys know this? The circuses were invented as traveling world fairs.
Yep.
So
we broke down circuses about 2 years ago.
So
because they use circus as a way to bastardize the Moors and then to talk down on Prophet Noble Ali. But they don't understand the traveling world fairs aspect of it because they don't. It's like you have to understand us as a global empire first, and then it would be more so into the you could accept it that we may have ruled the whole world from America.
Yeah. Well, you know what they do is they try and they try and take an empire and they try and turn it into a linear story. So they'll say, "Oh, Ireland to North Africa. Well, they went here, then they went there, then they went there, then they landed in Africa." Instead of saying they were in control of Africa to Ireland at the same time.
You familiar with the Fomorians? Since we brought up Ireland and Scotland.
I mean, only a little bit. I only know as much as was in the Mind Unveiled video.
Yeah.
But yeah. What can you tell me?
Yeah, I mean, from what I hear, it was supposed to be these giant people who had knowledge of magic and were magi's and were seafarers. Same story that you hear about all the other seafaring great people. It just happened to be called Fomorian. Why they were called Fomorian? Maybe because that was tied to the Moors. But I didn't dip into Basque mythology. I didn't dip into Basque mythology, and in Basque mythology, they speak about the enchanted Moors, the enchanted Moors. So, and all of this is interconnected. All of this is. Have you ever heard of Chandragupta Maurya?
No.
Okay, yeah. Chandragupta Maurya He was one of the first uniters of what we call modern day India back in 350 BC. He was using some of these elephants to defeat Alexander the Great's predecessor, Darius the Great. So, I mean, when you hear these modern day stories within the past 2,000 years, elephants being used in war, the first people attested to that, documented it, is by Chandragupta Maurya in the Mauryan Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, when you speak about on the elephants, like, is like you said, like, is all triple connected. It all goes back to the Moors. Rather it's Eastern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere, it don't matter. But Chandragupta Maurya, his descendancy is Moorjats, and the Moorjats are descended from Scythians. So this is all interconnected, all interrelated, all go back to the Amorites, exactly what you just said, all connecting back to a sun-worshiping Magi people who were traveling Magi, sun worshippers, who migrated from Central Asia all the way to Europe. Brought technology, information, like this is documented by Indian scholars. You can check out B.S. Dahaya, The Origin of the Mauryans. He speaks heavy on this. I think it would do you a great benefit to get into the Moorjats, Morjats, and look up their history, look up Chandragupta Maurya's history and how it plays a part with the Scythians and the Moorish history as a 360-degree conglomerate. Because I also hear stories of swastika being brought from Asia to America over 15,000 years ago by the same Scythian, I guess you could say Tartarian, same Moorian types of people.
Let's look at it right here. It's primarily the tribe that uses the swastika most in America is the Navajo.
Yeah,
and the Hopi. And the Hopi. Well, let's look at those two words. The Navajo, as you were just talking about, this seafaring people. Well, Navajo is the same word as navigator. These are the navigators, the Navi.
Oh wait, if we're going to do that, we have to handle the navigator and how he brought through the Bornstone, connected the whole, like, the Byzantines when they were Moroccans and monks came over to the Americas in the 5th century, built the first church in America's 5th century church in Connecticut.
And what? Sorry to cut it.
Akushama.
I gotta cut in. Monkeys. You just said monks?
Yeah.
At circuses, what do monkeys wear on their heads?
The fez, tarbush.
You see the three words, they like take these keywords and make like a spoof out of it.
Yeah, that's called the burlesque degree. That's called the burlesque degrees. Y'all gotta study that. That's literally, that's why we go at it about confusion, because they're like making movies and plays about what the real history was and then switching it around in a play, blackface and all that stuff.
You know why that is? Vampires have to be invited into your home. Black magic only works if the magician is telling you what they're doing to you. That's black magic cannot be done to you without your consent. You have to consent. So
that's the national vote. That's the national vote right there. And they literally call it the election to put you, like, the first tax you ever pay, or the first whatever form you fill out that calls you to get taxes, where you put that, that number to make Social Security number of tax, whatever those numbers are, 10 million, whatever. The first one you ever do, you do your job, get your first job when you were 8. They keep reassigning that job annually, making it seem like you're a taxpayer, aka employee of the United States. So you owe the debt that the United States owes based off Article 6 of the Constitution. So this thing the reason why they're tricking us, so we don't claim our lands back and claim back our bloodlines of who we are. Like, we're not, like, if we all did that, we wouldn't have any problems, because, like, what's stopping us from going into barter right now?
Well, I think there's so many good angles. I don't know what to touch on, but
it's too many. It's so much. It's so vast. It's innumerable. It's innumerable.
No, I got one because I was looking up stuff while y'all was talking, and I put up a couple links, and y'all more could go through this. This thing is called In the Shadow, the Greek colonies of North America and the Atlantic, 1500 BC to 1500 AD. I'll say it again. In the Shadow, the Greek colonies of North America and the Atlantic, 1500 BC to 1500 AD.
And Atlantic is where the creek has always been stationed out, southeast in particular.
Yep.
South Carolina, all the way down to Florida, connecting back on the west to Texas.
We're told that our Georgia comes from King George.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Remember King George's Gangstown.
Well, maybe, but that Georgia actually comes from Saint George, the same Georgia.
That's what I meant.
The same Georgia as Russia and the Ottoman Empire. So you have an Ottoman Byzantine Georgia, and then you have the Georgia over here. Well, as we know, the Muscovites, the Muskogee, are the Moscovites from Russia. That's why you have a St. Petersburg, Russia, and a St. Petersburg, Florida, which was nicknamed Little Constantinople or New Constantinople in that map that we were just looking at.
That's a good point out between the Moscow, Russia, and the Muscovy. That's because we already know that Russia had a jurisdiction in North America before the U.S.
And remember the Moroccans. Remember that the chief they had that got captured was named Moscow.
Wow. Wow. That's a good one.
You also have
that's good, Moor.
That's where the word mosque comes from. Moscow. You also have
So you telling me the word mosque is indigenous to North America?
Well, they was calling them mosquito.
Mosquito.
So mosquito.
Exactly.
I mean, then that goes back into the whole. If you know about there's something called the Duffy and Noah allele that's been in America for 15,000 years, and the real reason that a lot of Europeans was coming over to this land because we had the cure for the malaria and the Black Plague and it was in the cinchona bark that's found in Brazil. You can get the quinine treatment out of it. It's a serum. We've been eating a treat that our ancestors have been taking in that treatment for so long. We naturally grow a natural selection to be a resistance to a malaria called Duffy Null allele. We all got that, and it goes back 330,000 years, which is when the Y chromosome separates from the rest of humanity. So like, it's deep to be over here and know who you are, because then it kind of puts everybody else in perspective, and you see that we're all just one big family, and different people, bred off the same tree at different times. Yep, that's the diaspora.
Yeah, well put. Can I show? I've got. What were we talking about?
He's talking about everything. Everything. Everything.
We did do with Greek and America.
Okay, Greek. I'd love to show you some Greek stuff. I'm gonna share my screen right now. So Florida has always had giants living in it. Old people, the Timucua who live here, the native.
Chat. I did it earlier, right? This thing is like perfect.
The Timucua are some of the first people that Columbus ran into and the French ran into. Well, they landed near Puerto Rico, right? Near the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. Well, here, after the Spanish were kind of done messing with Florida, an Englishman took a colony of Minorcans or Greeks and Turks in Florida. Now, also, we were just talking about Muscovites. I'm sure, do you guys know what a Muscovy duck is? Muscovy duck? Well, those are here in America. So where does that name come from, right? Muscovy duck. It's very weird. Well, I've got another bird that you might know of that its name really doesn't belong here. Can you guys guess what that one is? We just I didn't. I'm a vegetarian, but some of us might have just ate them for Thanksgiving.
Moor bird?
Turkey, the Moor bird, the phoenix. Yes. So Benjamin Franklin said that the turkey is the closest animal to the phoenix, and that's why it should be. Benjamin Franklin wanted the turkey to be the American state bird, the bird of America, instead of the bald eagle, because they were trying to say which bird is most like a phoenix, and they said, well, probably the turkey, because it has those plumes. It's almost like a peacock kind of, and it's got some flaming colors on it. The men do with the gobble gobble thing. Well, turkey is where we get that name, turkey, because they said it looked so exotic. It was such an exotic bird. They named it turkey, like Turks. Well, I don't think so. I think the Southeast United States was a Turkish colony. But here, I've got some great stuff on the Greeks. So we have 2 Greek colonies in Florida that we're not really told much about. Number 1 is New Smyrna, and Smyrna is an ancient Greek city in Turkey, modern day Turkey, called Izmir today. So Smyrna comes from Izmir. Smyrna.
When y'all download, I mean, when y'all look up that joint I gave y'all, it has all that in there, like all the different translations of the names is found in America. Right?
So when Dr. Turnbull located a colony of Minorcans or Greeks in East Florida, southwest of St. Augustine, during the early years of the English possession of that region, he discovered the ruins of a town of considerable size, bearing evidence of having been built by and occupied by Europeans. But the oldest and most intelligent among the Indians said they knew nothing whatever of who built the place or inhabited it. So we're told officially that he showed up with a bunch of Greeks. But as we're seeing, he actually discovered the remnants of a colony. He re-inhabited it. Right here, ancient Tallahassee, once the seat of Corning, the Athens of Florida, and the aristocratic center of the state. It's amazing to hear anyone call Tallahassee Athens, because if you've been to Tallahassee today, it's one of the worst cities, unfortunately.
I gotta read this. This is crazy. Can I add this in? Because it's like, I know we're gonna go to another word. It says right here in that book I gave. I'll give it again, Dan. It says Native American names such as Michigan or Mixinen and Ojibbean chief and Machinen Maki, the local tribe, bear apparent similarity to the Greek name of Mycena. Mycena.
Yes.
And then you already know about the mushrooms, Mycena.
Yes. Wow. Can I tell you real quick? One of the most famous Seminole chiefs was named Micanopy. Micanopy. They went by the name Miccosukee, which I have linked to Mykonos in Greece. The Mykonos.
Well, the word Miko, that's the old Muskogee word for leader. When you hear the word Miko or Mingo, and that's the old Creek word for leader.
If you're Irish,
it's from Greek too. Minoa.
Yes, exactly. And Menorcans, like we just saw,
exactly.
Greek.
Mino, Miko. Like you said,
it's funny you say you just pulled up that thing about the Greek etymology, and that's absolutely correct. That the Greek native Greek etymology goes back to Greek. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Cherokees spoke Greek and came from East Mediterranean. This was 12 years ago. And this with DNA. Exactly. This is the DNA test website that was like, what the fuck?
dang, I wanted to give the chat a way to look at this. Oh my gosh. Oh, wait. We looked at this before. If you can find the system that this is on, it's a syllabary system. Ah, damn it. What is it called? Syllabary system B or language system B. I can't remember what the name of it is, but when you look this thing up, it shows how all languages from the Lingua Franca kind of they all relate to the Cherokee syllabary, which is odd as hell because Sequoia supposedly just did it. Why does all the languages like Greek and all those Romance languages, they go back to the Cherokee syllabary? And I was trying to find the writing system that this.
Can I tell you why?
Go ahead.
Because Sumeria, which is the original, Sumeria is the original first official civilization, right? That's Sumeria. Well, do you know what the first city ever recorded in American history? You know what it is? Sorry, not American history, human history. You know what it is?
What, Sumu?
Uruk.
Oh, Uruk.
Uruk.
Wow.
And Uruk is where we get Iraq, because Iraq is Babylon, right? And Sumeria is Babylon, largely. So when you go back to Uruk, which is the first official metropolis, first official big city, that's Uruk, that's Iraq. Well, let's cross the Atlantic Ocean, and what do we find? Iroquois.
I was about to say that sounds Algonquin. When you said the word, I thought Algonquin. As soon as you said the word Uruk, I was like, that sounds near like it's near the Huron tribe or Onondaga or Kanata tribe. So matter of fact,
look up syllabary on Google. Like
matter of fact, it is Algonquin. Look up Uruk. Yuruk. It's Algonquin.
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
Yeah.
Yuruk.
Oh wow, yeah, Uruk. Yep, that's Iroquois. That's Iraq. That's Dune. We were talking about Dune with Arrakis. So this is now with Cherokee. I'm going to take it on a little bit of a stretch here, but you'll see what I mean. You guys know Arabic prefixes and Hebrew prefixes. A lot of times you run into that ha sound, right? The ha.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Shemitic, right?
Exactly. Like Hanukkah, right?
It goes back to Phoenician, Proto-Phoenician.
When you take Iraq and you pronounce it like that, Harak. There's your Cherokee. It's anglicized. Cherokee is the same word as Iraqi. Iraqi and Cherokee are the same word.
But remember that Malungian article I had read, they was talking about how the Malungians were either from the Lost Colony or Roanoke, or they were from Welsh explorers, or they were from the Lost Tribes of Israel, or they were from Carthaginian sailors, or they were from shipwrecked Portuguese. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's all interconnected. It's all
Did you ever
go back to the same people.
Did you ever look at because since we in Greek, right? Let's do it like this. I found a language system. It's called Linear B, which was used to transcribe Mycenaean Greek, a language of complex syllables. Y'all gotta look into the syllabaries. I swear to God, this thing it get crazy. Like the Mooric languages and all that. It ties all into the languages we speaking about right now that don't really include English, but all the things that the English kind of made itself off of. And since we're dealing with Greek, all right, I want to do this slow because I'm going to forget things. Don't you realize how we have a Pachamama? And over there, they have a Pasha as a title.
Yeah.
And they have a Bay, they say, in the day. But you can come back over here and find an Atabey. This is why I bring that up. It's because when Christopher Columbus was said to come here, or Cristobal Colon, or Gonzalez Zarco, depending on which story you're dealing with, when whoever came here, they had a translator with them that knew how to speak Taino. Why? So he knew how to speak Taino, right? Then the Taino has stories about a group called the Jarakan or the Guanahata. right? And they said the Guanahani, they don't do what we do. They worship, they try to make it seem like they were primitive, but their language and their god is called Atabey, but the Taino was called worshiping Atabey. The Guanahata people go back to their name was called the Guanahata Bay. The Guanahani, the people, and then the Atabey is the deity. So I'm seeing how
and notice the Asian connection too with the Gua.
Yeah,
with the Gua.
Gua Bay, Bai.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like you can see a more ancient use through the titles over here.
Guyana and Guinea too. New Guinea, Guyana. Right.
Yep.
And that's what that was actually a derogatory. That was like calling an Italian person the N-word, was to call them a Guinea.
Calling them Guinea, yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This word go back farther though, because it's like they actually pronounce it Guanahani. So like not Guinea, but Guanahani.
Yep.
Atabey, like Guanahata, like you got to mix the words together. Go Guanahana Atabey.
And you also have did you say Guantanamo Bay somewhere in there?
You can do that because it kind of does that. It does that, yeah.
Or the Bay. Crazy. You guys know about the Bay of Pigs?
Yeah.
The Bay of Pigs, where we sent all the Cubans back. Well, Cuba is
wait, and then pigs in Portuguese is Marano.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it in Serrano too? In Suerto? How do you say it in Spanish? Serno. Serno. Like CERN.
That's crazy.
Like CERN. Serno. But
Brother Longo, we're at 2 hours 30 right now.
Man, hold on, wait, hold on, man. Where Dr. Longo, where do you come from, bro? What's your nationality? Like, where your people come from? Because I already know this is about to get crazy.
I'm Irish.
Oh, that's easy.
I'm Irish. I'm Irish, Welsh, and German.
Well, okay,
that's my heritage. Yeah.
So I know the German connection off the Fucker family. You got like Meet the Fuckers. That's actually a real thing. You gotta look up the Fugger, Jacob Fugger, Jacob Fugger, and it's his family crest is a Moabite mother, a dark-skinned woman, holding a. She's wearing a crown. No, she's wearing a Pope's hat, holding a crown, and then in the bottom picture, she's holding the Pope's hat, wearing the crown. So it's like
it's like the black. It's like the Black Pope, like the Jesuit Black Pope. Mm-hmm.
And I think they had we did something called we had a Mozarabic rite, and in the Mozarabic rite, also called the Hispanic rite, we wrote the Celtic rite for your people, and then they came. A lot of them came over in America, and some stayed. I don't know, but we brought the surnames over. That's what made it important.
You gotta ask yourself, why were the Irish treated so badly? Why were the Basque treated?
Because they were looked at as Moors. They were looked at as an extension of the Moorish people. And when you look through the 1830s and the 1840s, all these U.S. House representatives in the Southwest talk about it. These Mauritanian races, these Moorish people down here in Mexico. That was the theme of the 1830s and the 1840s was to not have a war with these damn Moorish people, aka the Mexicans and their Indian associates.
Yep.
781 years of war. Jeez.
And it was up until World War II, Irish and Italian people were not considered white.
Yep,
if you
I got it right here.
If you were Irish and looked like me and you called yourself white, you'd be laughed at, because they looked at you as worse than worse. You were dark, you were dirty, you were whatever interpretation it is. The Irish were some of the worst treated people. In fact, in the as soon as they outlawed slavery, there was nothing protecting Irish in the eyes of the English. So they still kept Irish as slaves pretty much up until World War II. When after World War II, when they had to recruit all the Italian and Irish people into the army, because they needed the army to be big, they did the same thing with black people. once they recruited the Irish and Italian into the army in World War I and World War II, then they like earned the badge of honor of being called white. But up until that time, Irish were practically enslaved, especially in places like New York and Philadelphia. The Irish were
There's a large
worked to
Irish,
death.
Scottish presence in the Caribbeans. Matter of fact,
Yeah,
I was
that was a
one of my
Jamaica.
best friends who's from Jamaica. His
Yes.
last name's Innerarity. His last name's
Yeah.
Innerarity, and he was telling me literally last week how he was doing his genealogy, and he was like, some of his grands had said that he was Irish, but he's a Moor. Feel me? He's a brother.
Yeah.
You feel me? But
You
this
know,
is
They
some of
think
that.
it means pale, but it don't mean that. It's just
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, Bob Marley was half English or half Celtic, something from up there. And you know, in Jamaica, that's a wonderful point that you point that out, because Led Zeppelin has a song. Where they actually, it's a joke about how Irish accent and Jamaican accent are almost the same, how they're very, very close, and how if you've ever seen the movie I Love You Man, have you guys ever seen I Love You Man?
yeah.
Okay, well, it's a terrible like Hollywood comedy, but it's funny, and basically they have a joke in that movie where he's trying to play the bass and do a Jamaican accent, right? And he's trying to do this Jamaican accent, this white guy.
Slapping the bass.
Exactly. Slapping the bass. And everyone and his girlfriend or his friends are like, "Are you trying to do Irish? Is that an Irish accent?" And he's like, "No, it's Jamaican."
That
It's
shit was
Jamaican.
so funny.
Well, here's another one that's gonna blow your guys' minds. Sea moss. Is sea moss Jamaican or is it Irish?
Irish moss.
Irish moss.
It's called sea moss.
Yep.
Man.
You also have Spanish moss here in Florida, in America. That was also a big native medicine.
Oh, I got a book reference real quick too. It's called the West Indian Study. The book name is called Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica by Joseph J. Williams Sr.
Wow.
PhD.
Yeah.
He was going there. And his family was actually McVeigh. So like the McVeigh, they were saying how a lot of Jamaicans got that, but it's really a Irish thing. So then it's like, well, then that would be claiming back. If you understand a pirate connection, it's a good time to bring it up. If you understand a pirate connection, then you would understand how the Jamaicans hold the title of Jamaica and Ireland. The pirates, the pirates were the bankers back in the day. We did a little study and found out that they would carry so much gold and stuff on their ships. It was what we would consider the treasury today.
Yeah, it was safer to keep the gold on the water.
And ain't nobody robbing no pirates. Well, you know, because you already know they got down a little different. They were crazy. Oh, and I wanted to add this too, because since we were doing Irish. It says, this is from Benjamin Franklin, 1751, The Concern for Mankind. And he was talking about the people coming over to Americas. He says, why should Pennsylvania be founded by the English become a colony of aliens who would shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion? Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia is chiefly tawny. America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so, tawny and black.
Wow.
And in Europe, the Spaniards, the Italians, the French, the Russians, the Swedes are generally of what we call swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons only excepted, who with the English being Anglo-Saxon, the English word, make the principal body of white people on the face of the.
Wow. I have never in my life heard Swedish people called swarthy or dark-skinned.
Y'all was with us.
Ain't the Swedish word for mother Moor?
Huh?
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
Swedish, but
Yeah, I think the Swedish or Norwegian word for mother is M-O-R, if I'm not mistaken. More.
It makes sense. Well, that's the word for love in Latin. Amor, mi amor.
Proto-Indo-European, don't more mean sea as well?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And what's the who's we got
Mori, excuse me, Mori, M-O-R-I, which I don't know if that connects with Japanese Mori, which means forest.
To talk about Sweden real quick, how does that fit in? I do have a thread that I know fits into what you just said. How the Swedish, there's an island in Sweden called Gotland, and my friend Ben from Waking Up with Analog, go check him out, everyone. Done some videos with him. He works with Karimo, that guy Karimo.
Yeah.
He works with him on some videos.
Talk trash about our prophet, but we listen to him still.
Okay. I don't watch his videos, but I know he covers a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And he showed me motorcycle. But he showed me, God damn it, what were we just talking about?
Sweden.
Thank you. So in Sweden, you have the largest collection of Arabic coins outside of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
So how the fuck did Arabic, all this vault, these chests, thousands
the Mauryan
and
Empire.
thousands? It's because they either started up there, which is why you have more of them up there, and they were sent downwards from the south, or what we're told officially is that it was Templars, like Frankish, German, Nordic knights that had fought in the Crusades and came home with a lot of treasure. But you can't walk home with that much treasure, you know.
Yeah.
So you have all these Arabic coins in Sweden.
Oh, you just did it. You just did it, Moore. I'm sorry. You just did it. When you look up the Jolly Rouge, all y'all gotta do is look up the Jolly Rouge, and you'll find the pretty red or the red flag of what the piracy.
Ooh, Jolly Rogers. Right.
When you look up the Barbary piracy and the Barbary slave trade, that's another reason why we can't deal with anything, because they think the way they depicted their slaving black people was how the Moors slaved Christians. But when you read the Christian narratives, not the ones that they rewrote for the burlesque, but the ones from actually being there, they wanted to be in that form of servitude, because the way the Moorish lands was, they got to learn all the languages, you got to learn different stuff and ways to dress, different ways to travel, do commerce.
Alchemy.
So you can learn everything you needed to learn being a servant to the Moors. The whole world wanted to do that, but then after the I guess you could say the Inquisition Crusade, because that was kind of us versus us. We kind of lost control.
Well, think about the Inquisition. You know what was going on largely at the same time as the Inquisition?
What?
The Inca-cision.
Oh,
the Inca were being decimated at the same time as the Inquisition. And what is an Inc? What race has the most ink in their skin?
The
Morenos.
First mulatto. Yeah.
The dark skin is inked. To have ink. Indigo is even largely the same. Indigo is ink, right?
Yep.
Indian ink. Indian ink is indigo, right?
The auto.
So,
Yep.
And another reference that you brought up too was the mooring mast for the Zeppelin.
The mooring point. Yes.
Yeah.
I can show you guys some anchors though. I think we should wrap it up here.
We can wrap up with the anchors.
I gotta hop on another show, but
all right. Well, I appreciate you for taking the time today. This was great.
Oh, of course. We'll do it. We'll do it again sometime.
For sure.
You guys can come on to my channel. We'll go on.
I'm gonna come through.
Okay, we can go live on my channel. Have another Moorish Monday. We'll do Moor Monday or Mormon Monday.
Mormon Monday.
Moon Day. Moon. We'll call it Moon-eyed Monday.
Moon-eyed Monday.
Lunes días de moros.
So let me pull up some Saxor stones. That's what we call them. And you know, we were just talking about the Anglo-Saxons. This guy I made a documentary with in Tampa Bay, Florida, he is actually descended from one of these European royal families, the Saxors. He's actually, no joke, you know, a lot of people, a lot of crazy people you meet will say, oh, I'm a long lost relative from this person, that person. He actually has the family tree to prove it. He has the last name to prove it. His name's John Saxor. His last name, Saxor, is where we get the word Saxon.
Yeah, I was just about to say, sounds like Saxon.
Yep, he's descended from the Anglo king line, the Merovingians, some of them, who may have been Moravingians or Moravingians. Like Finn is Phoenician or Finnish. The Vinland in Newfoundland in America is Newfoundland, which is either New Venice. Florida was called the Venice of the New World, right? Venice.
Yep. But before the trees got cut down, though, because it makes it more possible for that. Yeah.
Oh, and you know, Florida had some of the tallest, biggest trees in the world. They were as big as the redwoods, but older. So we had older trees in Florida than the redwoods and sequoias, but they were all chopped down. We're lucky we still have some redwoods. There's only one notable, sizable Florida cypress tree left because they had to get rid of the trees. You know, they had to get rid of the Moors. They had to get rid of the turbans, the fezzes, the elephants, the camels. The architecture they kept because the architecture was pretty nice, right? Having nice hotels, and they could make a buck off it too. But here, I'll share my screen. I got some anchors pulled up right here. All right, you see my screen?
Yeah.
Nice. So, ancient stone anchors, before the invention of the anchor, this is what you would use. Only one problem. The ones in Florida are very, very big compared to the ones in the Mediterranean, which are on average about 300 pounds. Because if it's any bigger than 300 pounds, you can't lift it with two people. You would need more than two people, which is pretty hard to do on a boat. So these would take giants to lift. That's John Saxor right there.
Yeah. He built that was the coral reef show.
No, he didn't. This is not that guy.
Oh, okay, all right.
No. This is John Saxor of Tarpon Springs. He was an Egyptologist who moved, kind of like retired down to Florida, and he started bumping into these anchors. A lot of them are kind of in rundown neighborhoods, so people don't really pay attention to them. Well, these are the biggest and oldest stone anchors in the world. And if you have the biggest and oldest stone anchors in the world, they would have to belong to the oldest and biggest ancient maritime culture in the world. And that's Atlantis.
Oh,
so
man, he just did it. He just did it.
Here are some
them holes right there. You see those type of holes in the megalithic structures down there over there in South America and
Yucatan.
Yeah.
Yucatan, yeah.
And in Egypt too, the perfect cylindrical.
Yep. So this was bored perfectly. You can actually see the rifling on the inside of there, the spiral, and the patina, the coating on the rock, which shows its age, is actually the same on the inside of that hole, which shows that hole is thousands of years old and it's perfect.
I was just about to say that. I ain't no specialist at all, but that clearly looks at least like a couple thousand years old.
Yeah.
Multiple thousands.
Yep. Oh,
like we might not be able to carbon date that.
Yeah.
No. Now you see this one right here. This one's kind of bleached, right?
Mm-hmm.
what they actually do is they put these in the front of neighborhoods, and then they'll pressure wash them. So they pressure wash the patina off so that you can't date them. So that this one you'd have a hard time dating. This one we can tell for sure.
Yeah.
This one was in the water 6,000 years ago. We know for sure. And that little hole in the middle, they bleached that too. Power washed.
That's crazy.
This one
y'all know what y'all seeing right now.
Yeah, nah. Imagine the ship. How if the anchor's that big, then how big was
this?
What was they riding on?
Exactly.
It's a state sailing over in the damn water.
That's the question you're not allowed to ask. That's why you don't hear about these anchors.
Damn.
That's like finding the Olmec heads or something.
That's in a golf course.
Yeah. Golf course?
Golf course in Florida.
They are kings for like building golf courses on our stuff. That's crazy.
Well, that's how
that's how harness the energy.
Yep. Do you know we were talking about the Gulf Stream earlier, right? The Gulf Stream, how it's like the kind of like the sperm of the planet, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's a golf course? A golf course is the same exact word as Gulf Stream. A gulf is a gulf, and a stream is a course, right? A path that's being taken.
Yeah.
So they play golf courses, and what you pointed it out. It might not have been. It might not have been you guys. It might have been our friend D that left earlier. Yeah. Where does the Gulf Stream pretty much go to? It goes from Florida to Scotland. Well, where
the Moorish Empire?
And where was golf invented? In Scotland. On St. Andrews links, these big open fields that are like burial mounds. In Florida, where's the second golf capital of the world? South Florida. You got Palm Beach, you have PGA, North Palm Beach, Jupiter, and Naples. Naples, Florida is the golf capital of the world. Well, Naples, Florida is on the Gulf Coast of Florida. So is it any coincidence that the best place to play golf is the Gulf? You know,
come on,
it's right there. and that's what all the rich people do. That's kind of when you know you made it, is when you're invited to the golf course, right?
Green jacket.
Yeah.
God.
18 holes, birdie, eagle.
18, the double eagle. They have a double eagle in golf.
So that's
double eagle.
Yep.
Ain't the double eagle? That's the
Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
Byzantine.
Yep. Austria too. Later.
Yep.
Dang.
Wow.
Hey, Grand Sheik, before we dip, can we pull up that picture of all the Latin American countries in their sign and symbols, and majority of them having fezzes on their symbols?
From the same email?
Yeah. I just found that like last week.
Because they said they had the when people would come here and get free, they would wear the Phalangian or the Liberty cap as symbology of being freed.
So
welcome to Fez.
Can we go to the next one first? You could go to the next one right there. Okay, so let's start with that. So that's from 1894, and these are the country. These are the coat of arms. These are the coat of arms. So we can look at Haiti. Haiti, they got their red cap. Nicaragua, they got their red cap, their fez as their coat of arms.
It's pyramided.
Argentina, they got their red cap, their fez as their coat of arms. Paraguay,
handshake too.
Paraguay, Kazir, Paraguay, lion. They got their with the lion. They got their fez as their coat of arms. And then you could go to the previous pick. That'll be the bottom picture, basically, Grand Sheik.
All right.
Volcano erupting. No, this is you can pull it up and stuff.
And then Honduras, right there, the third one at the top. They got their fez as their coat of arms. And you can scroll down.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, of course.
The Honduras is the Han of China, the Han dynasty, the Hun. The Paraguay is, if you know the people of Paraguay, the mummies, they're called Paracas. The Paracas skulls. Well,
like the Paracas skulls. Yep.
There's your Iraqis, your Iroquois, your Iraq.
Right, you just did that. Yep. Going all the way back to Doom. Yep.
And then finally, you got Colombia right there with the fez as their coat of arms. So what is Latin America? I mean, we know why, but just to put it in proper perspective, what is all these Latin American countries doing with the fez as their coat of arms in the 1800s?
Right.
How come we're just now seeing this?
Well,
you know, go back down real quick, Grand Sheik. I want to see where it had the eagle with a snake in his mouth, but I don't think that was Mexico.
Yeah. That was Mexico. That's the previous one.
Was? Oh, the previous. All right, cool. Cool.
Oh, by the way, you can stop right there, Grand Sheik. That's a picture of a Seminole. That's for the brother Longo. That's a picture of Seminole dolls.
Yeah.
In the Florida Museum, and you can see what's on his head.
A fez.
The same thing and that's in the Florida Museum. That was made by a Seminole artist in the 1930s, by the way. So,
have you guys seen good pictures of Seminoles? I could show you guys pictures.
Billy Bowlegs in them.
Oh my God.
That was crazy, right? The way they wore their fezzes, that shit, man.
You wouldn't
with
believe.
The bandana. But who know to wear bandanas in North America? A certain group of people.
Yeah, Seminole.
Yeah.
Or Yamasee or Amal Carthaginian.
Oh, by the way, Grand Sheik right there, that's the Florentine Codex in 1577. And if you look at Quetzalcoatl, the fourth picture on the bottom,
look at it.
What does he have? What does Quetzalcoatl have on his head?
A fez in the damn turban. I mean, in the feathers. His fez is in the feathers. Crazy. I see.
So,
you know, we were talking about Turkey and the Muscovy ducks. Well, you just pointed out another one, a pheasant. We have pheasant in America. And why did they call these birds exotic? They gave them exotic names because they had exotic tropical looking heads and headdresses on the birds. So when they see the pheasants, they say pheasant. It's a pheasant. It's a bird. It's a bird with a fez. You know what? Did you know what the Turks and Caicos were named for?
The turkey head being red.
Well, the Turks and Caicos, which we're told, which is right off the Keys of Florida. Well, the Keys of Florida are the Turkeys, the Keys of the Ottoman Keys, and the Turks and Caicos was named for a cactus that has a red top at the tippy top of the cactus, and they call it a fez cactus or a Turkish cactus. And that's why when they came to America, we're told, this is bullshit, by the way, there were Moors and Turks and Greeks here already. But they tell us it's because of this cactus. They call it a Moor's head cactus or a pheasant head cactus. So that's where the word Turks and Caicos comes from. Because when they'd see the cactuses, they'd say, "Oh, those look like Turks," right?
That was their thing.
That's what I thought about when
they was naming everything over here Moors. You got Morro's Bay, Morro's Key, Morro's Head over there in California. When they came over here, they saw the other extension of the Moorish Empire, the Western, the Almagrib Alaska.
That's part of the burlesque degrees. Like they call it, it went from morophobia to morophilia into negrophilia. You can look it up. And this is where they get the, where they infatuated over the Moors and then infatuated over just black people. Oh, look at the skin, look at the hair. It's like, making it like a mockery from the royalty that we had, deducing it down to just, oh, she's pretty just because she got that type of hair or a bunch of it. Like,
Well, it's a status thing. You know, what does Aryan mean? Aryan means noble, right?
Yep.
Nobility.
Yep.
And what does Khan mean? Khan means keen or like king, to be keen, to see clearly.
K-E-N.
You know, that's an indigenous American word as well. Khan or Kakin, that means interpreter or teacher.
Keen.
Literally.
That's keen. More, that's crazy.
Like a part of my family, Moor Gotti Kakin, we was the ones who was the translators, the researchers, the connectors. You can find this word Khan all throughout the southeast, the northeast, Algonquin, Iroquois, Creek, this Khan, but that's also connected to like Canaanite, Cohen, serpent priest. All of this is interconnected.
I haven't shared this anywhere else, but my
Chan, like you said before, Chan, Khan.
He about to give us a key. I was waiting for this.
No. I was just gonna say, I'm not gonna share my whole name. But my real name is Khan. My real name is Khan.
Yeah, that's real because literally one of the meanings of the word Khan here in the Metaach language, the Muskogee language, it means interpreter. And this is what you're doing right now with the research you're presenting. You're being a teacher. You're being an interpreter, a shower, purveyor of information, enlightener. So you living up to your name.
You pass me the
cocking right now.
I'm cocked and loaded, baby.
That's crazy.
Can I share my screen and we'll end with this?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hello, dancing elephant.
Dancing elephant.
We are not open today. No problem. Sorry about that.
Oh, if you want to give that, you have to also to give the dancing elephant plug before you leave as well.
I'm about to go to it right
don't need to plug it. That's good. I've got so many people walking in already. It's
for
real. It's probably not a good idea to tell people to come so much. But here, we'll end with this.
Hey, that hat right there, that right there, I got a picture of my fourth great grand sheik. Didn't see. Matter of fact, that's the picture that you're looking at my picture. That large Fezler hat.
Yeah.
We've been wearing that in my family for Lord knows how long.
Yes,
I got a picture of my mother in that. My great grandmother in that.
You know what Orthodox Jews wear in like New York and Russia, right? They wear that cap. Well,
Billy.
Well, they're Semitic, right? Or they claim to be Semitic. Well, these are Seminoles. So you tell me who's the real Semitic. I think it's
old Semitic. Yeah. The old.
Notice the sash. The sash.
Look at that.
That's a key. It's a key Moorish attire. When you see that sash, with the vest, the tunic, all dead giveaways, bandana around the neck.
The sleeves that end at the elbow too.
Yep.
That's a North African thing.
Yep.
Pantaloons.
Pantaloon. Exactly. I was just about to say it. Because there's the pantaloons.
More. We never wore tight clothes. What is
it? Here, look at this. They've got him playing golf with his bow and arrow. He's like, get me out of here.
Yeah, he didn't want to put it down.
Now look at that. That is an Ottoman headdress. That's a Byzantine headdress right there. Yeah. Doesn't it look like that? That
when
looks
you see the variations of the turbans and fezzes being worn in America, it's usually accompanied with a plume or a feather. That's how we do it over here. Like over there in the East, they might do it naked fez or naked turban. Yeah. We feel me, even though I do see pictures of Berbers with variations of fezzes with their turbans as well, but all throughout the Americas, you're going to see that heavily.
That's it right there. Look at the Moor all the way to the right
with the plume.
All the way to the right. The second to the right look like Don Cheadle, and the one all the way to the right.
Don Cheadle, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Don Cheadle, yeah. It does.
And he creeped. And he got some creep in him too,
bro.
These are Seminole Confederates. The Seminoles sided with the Confederates. It wasn't even a thought. all the Creeks sided with the Confederates. Why? Because they knew it wasn't slavery that they were fighting for. They knew it wasn't that. That's just what we're told today. That's such a one-sided story.
Yeah.
They had slaves. We didn't.
Yeah.
They're the bad guys. We're the good guys. Well, if you know anything about the 5 civilized tribes, if we're going to believe the history, they had slaves too.
Yeah, they all bred slaves.
And the Seminoles, they were completely, we're told, runaway slaves, except they were fighting to keep slaves. Why is that? Because slave was not a racial borderline. It was not drawn on racial boundaries. But we can get into that. Let's look through all these.
If we put in war, then it makes more sense, like prisoners of war versus slave, you know.
And what's prisoners of war or prisoners of Moor? Flip that W upside down.
That's right. Cassiopeia.
Now here's a good example of. I don't know if you guys know, but the average height for a Seminole. I should have started off with this. When we were talking about giants. The average height of a Seminole, 6'4". Average height in the 1960s, 6'4".
That's right.
So how is it that they all have the same tall height if they're mixed with some of these people, some of that people? They're tall as shit. They were all 6'4" on average. To find a man that was under 6 foot was very unusual. They went barefoot 100% of the time. They wore turbans, and these 50 Seminoles could hold off 5,000 armed U.S. military men. And that's why Andrew Jackson had to spend so much money. The most money that America's ever spent fighting a group of native people was against the Seminoles. The U.S. spent the most money and resources they've ever spent fighting a group of people, a group of natives. It was the Seminoles. Now, the one I'm about to show you, so the guy we were just looking at, I think his name's Tom Tiger. You can see he's very European. He has a lot more of the European traits. This guy, he looks pretty typical of the Seminoles, but this next guy we're going to look at looks so Asian, you would not believe it. Mongolian, right? This is what a Mongol looks like. He looks like Genghis Khan, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Moro, not Filipino.
So now he looks very African. What we've been taught to think is African.
What do you call it? Phenotype. The phenotype.
Yes. And here he's kind of got a mix between a turban and a Frisian cap. The Liberty cap. Yeah. But another thing to notice about the Seminoles, how you know these people were so distinguished, is the dye that they use. Here's something talking about their physique, how their physique was remarkable. They attract attention by their height. Freedom, listen to this part. Freedom from admixture with degrading blood. So by keeping away bad blood, bad genetics, they are tall people. Copper-colored fellows over 6 feet in height. Extraordinary ability to endure and to achieve. And he says that he felt their flesh, and it didn't feel like the flesh of a normal person. He said their flesh felt more like rubber than flesh.
Oh, the rubber people. I'm getting boy, I'm
doing
this.
Even among the children, this physical superiority is seen. Unusual physical size and strength. Seminole men are handsome and exceptionally powerful. Another thing to note is that how much blue and purple dye the Seminoles had. This shows how sophisticated and how much status they had in the ancient world. Because if you had blue or purple dye, you could sell to the royalty. And the royalty now needed you more than you needed them. Because they needed their blue and purple dye.
Mm-hmm.
I think that type of purple that look red is called Phoenician purple.
Yep, and, Tyrian purple.
Tyrian
purple. And
Yeah.
Phoenician means red, and Tyre, the Phoenician colony, is where purple comes from. Tyrian purple. Well, something they tell us that all that dye was coming from sea snails in the Mediterranean, right?
The Murex.
Well, that's not true. The larger source, the more abundant source of this blue and purple dye is the horseshoe crabs on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And the Maya used, so to stop here real quick, this is Bok Tower, and this is a group of Seminoles outside of Bok Tower. So look at number one, look how big that tower is. All these guys are about 6'4". But why are they there? What are they trying to tell us? What's the point of bussing them all over there? Here's Seminoles wrestling gators. Popular pastime. Here's this is the most Arabic one I've ever seen. I think he looks like he's Afghani. He looks Afghani or
Persian.
Here's a Meskwaki. So this is not a Creek. This is a Meskwaki. But if you know your phonetics, you'll know Meskwaki is the same word as Muskogee. It's the same word as Muskogee too.
We know where the Rastas got their red, gold, and green from now.
Where?
Yeah, yep. Right
on that picture you just showed.
Oh yeah?
There you go. Right there.
That red, gold, and green.
Ooh, they trying to say Cujo, they try to say it come from Africa. Every time.
So Mexico is actually the same word as Muskogee. If you've ever heard, now this is a funny one. If you ever heard black people say ask, how do they say ask?
Ask.
It's axe.
Ass. Or
axe.
Oh, that way.
A lot of black people will say axe instead of ask because they naturally will flip the ska to a cuss, right? So when you take Muskogee and you flip the musk and you turn it into mux, you get Mexico. Mexico. Right? And this is also where you get the word Mecca. Mecca is Mexico. And the whole Mecca, right?
You can find a Chichi Mecca.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now this is Billy Bowlegs. This is he was one of the most famous Seminoles. That's just a glorious fez, and you can see his hair that they gave him a bowl cut to match the fez perfectly.
I studied that hairstyle from studying the Arawaks, and they said that's a ritualistic hairstyle done with bear grease.
Yeah, the English kings did the same thing. The Norman kings. And what's a Norman? A Mormon. The Normans are the Mormons.
That's some of my family's surname is some of them is Norman. Coming out of where? South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina, the land of the crescent moon and the
correct. And look at the vest. The vest is just dead giveaway. Look at the fringes. You see the fringes?
Yeah,
tassels on the pantaloons.
This is crazy.
So just showing you.
So this is
look at the three silver crescent moons around his neck.
Those are called gorgets, and we're told that those started as a European war thing, and they started gifting them to the natives. That's what we're told, right? Well, when you start understanding Confederate symbolism, the Confederates used the gorget, and the gorget symbolizes the crescent moon of Islam, like you just said.
Yep. And then you remember how they would take the gorget and put it under a 7-pointed star, 6-pointed star, 5-pointed star?
Yes.
To symbolize it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy. And what's a sheriff's badge? A sheriff's badge is a star and a crescent like this. And what's a sheriff? What's a sheriff? A sharif. A sheriff is a sharif.
Yeah.
Because our base is movie, so it's crazy.
So now here's a good one. If like you're saying, this is just so Islamic, Arabic, Muslim, Moorish, whatever you want to call it. But the way the guy's reclining, only Arabic people sit like that in a formal setting.
You can find that in India as well too.
Yeah, it's rude. It's rude in European culture to sit like that, you know,
slouch. Yeah.
But in Arabic, in Arabic culture, it's a symbol of, you know, comfort and dominance, kind of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's Billy Bowlegs when he's older.
He got darker when he got older.
And
crazy.
Of course, you see the women all do the neck beads and the neck stretching.
Yeah. She got more of the African look. They would call her African. She had her hair wrapped.
No, yeah. For some reason, the women retain more of the African genes, like African genes. The men seem to keep more of the Celtic, North African, Spanish.
Because the women pass along only the women bloodline, like the mitochondrial. The men hold the mitochondrial, and we pass the Y to our children, to our son, if we have one.
Well, the women tend to go dominant genes to dominant genes. Because women, if they're Rh negative, or if their children's not Rh negative, they can actually attack their own child in the womb and kill it. Their body will, because it'll recognize it as an alien.
A lot of us are high. We had high Rh positive genes.
Yes.
And a lot of the Europeans had negative, so it'd be a lot of the stuff. We came up with the serums, like they made the Rogram shot. Now I know it was before it was a certain type of twig you would chew on, and it would allow the baby to pass.
Ah, that's interesting.
It's histories. I think, and you find that plant in Brazil. I just can't remember the name of it right now. That's like 3 months ago stuff.
Another just right before we leave, another, I guess you could say, group of people that I don't know if you've looked into that has an aspect of the Moorish custom is the southwestern families in the Pueblo. From their adobe architecture. From their adobe architecture, that's largely Moorish.
Yeah.
To their language, from families like the Mescalero, Tao, like the Navajo we just said. I don't know if you did research on your Moorish missions, your Moorish architecture that was in the southwestern parts, but a lot of those southwestern Pueblo families carry the Moorish gene with the Moorish architecture and the Moorish custom as well. A lot of people think that is just southeast and northeast. The southwest has a piece to play regarding this diaspora as well.
Yeah,
that dude had to go back to that one real quick because I never noticed. He has a tassel hanging from the
feather.
That's crazy, bro. I'm done.
Yeah, like
I'm done.
The America is like we took it to a whole nother level.
Another level.
Whole nother level.
You ready for some ones? So all the ones I've been showing you so far are Creek, Seminole, Muskogee for the most part.
Yep.
The one I'm about to show you is, I think, Algonquin or Iroquois. His name's Sequoia, so I think he's one of the guys that created the Cherokee alphabet, right?
Yep, correct.
Yep.
So he is northeastern United States. Now look at that. He's even
with the medallion.
He's even more Arabic than the Seminoles.
Look at it.
This is a creek.
Yeah, definitely a creek.
That's a creek. And look at this dye. Look at the dye. They're dressed like how the kings of medieval Europe dressed. Exactly.
Yep.
They are dressed exactly like Florentine nobles in the 1500s. They're dressed exactly like the people in, a couple years after Game of Thrones, essentially. Right after the Dark Ages, in the Renaissance. This is how people were dressing in Europe.
Like Amor said in the chat, that's the Django outfits.
Well, you know that why did Django pick that blue suit? I think that's kind of telling right there. He picked the blue suit because
it fits that. Like, it's crazy.
It's the royal dye.
Yeah,
that's right.
The royal color.
if you follow the story of Shango, the god Shango, all the different emanations he has was in those the suits that Django chose. If you follow the story of Shango, he wears those same clothes like in tandem with like the Django movie. Like
Wow.
he ends off with the red suit with the two double axes, but Django had the double. You know, he had the two guns with the red on. So this is crazy.
So now this last one is also one of the most famous Seminoles. This last one, this is not a Seminole. This is a Potawatomi. I just threw him in because he was dressed so ridiculous. I mean, he looks like a pirate.
They know though. When you look up the Potawatomi, they all be wearing turbans, all types of variation turbans. They known for that. Potawatomi, if I'm not mistaken, means the enlightened one.
Mm-hmm. Now this is William Augustus Boles. I believe he's the first Billy Bowlegs.
They kidnapped him and sent him to the Moro prison.
I think so. That's what they tell us. You know, that's because they have to give us all these bullshit stories about how black and white was living in harmony. Because the Seminoles knew how to live in harmony. The Seminoles adopted white, they adopted black, and they would integrate perfectly. And they would live better than the Europeans, taller. So as I told you, they grew to 6'4" average. The tallest country in the world right now only has a 6'1" average. Denmark, Norway, right?
What?
That's only 6'1", and they're the tallest people in the world. 6'1" average. Now, granted, you're going to have a ton of 6'7" people in Denmark too, but the average, like the actual average in Florida, 6'4". And you know, when the Europeans arrived in America, the tallest people in the world were the Plains Indians. They were 6 foot. The chiefs, every chief on memory was 6'8". And in many cases, you would be chief simply because you were the tallest guy in the clan, and they would kind of groom you into being the chief. But if you were tall enough, that was good enough. And they say that it was like buffalo meat was so good for us. I don't think that's true. I think they just weren't exposed to all the chemicals and shit and all the highways and 5G and diseases. You know, obviously all the European disease shit is a bunch of bullshit, and they're just trying to hide the fact that they genocided all these people.
And you know what's crazy? We can see that in our families because like we can't eat pork or nothing like that. We'll clock out at like 55 years old, bad blood, and you know our liver clogged up. Our ancestors though, like my grandparents, the great grandparents, they ate pork, smoked, did whatever they wanted, and they lived long. My grandma's still alive, she's like 96.
Yeah,
she still eat pork. So I think it's just different based off of how she was brought up. She never knew about no.
Well, the chemicals will kill you faster. You know, the pork and alcohol will kill you over a very long time, a very slow, miserable. But chemicals will give you cancer in a matter of days if you're exposed to something rotten. Yeah. But I've probably got to get going here.
All right.
It was a great talk.
Yo, appreciate it. We'll definitely be in touch. And
it's the longest cast I've ever done, I think.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be. When you come here, you're gonna get 360 degrees.
Straight.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks, Dr. Longo?
No, that's it.
All
you
right.
know, you guys can find me at Old World Florida on YouTube, Instagram at Old World Florida, and to all you guys, Aljamir Kassir, D that was in here earlier. Hope I'm saying your names right. But feel free to hit me up on Instagram. Everyone in the room, so I can get your info and we can do it again on my channel sometime.
For sure.
But I'm gonna hop off, go smoke some pot, and hop on another call tonight on my channel, I think.
Just take 2 for the Moors while you're at it.
Well, it's marijuana, right?
Yeah, marijuana.
Oh yeah. Peace and love to all the Moors. Good thanks for being here.
Great build, Grant.
Cannabis.
Thank you for coming through, Moor. Thank you for coming through.
We're gonna have to do a part 2, Grant Sheet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
we'll definitely start part 2 going for sure.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you, Cujo. Thanks for reaching out.
Always.
Appreciate it, man.
All
right. Yeah, I'm gonna hop off. Have a good night, everyone.
All right.
You too, brother. Peace. Great build.
That was serious.
That was great build. Grant Sheik, you was on it, man. You was quick.
Yeah, because Alio's future, you already know how he go, and I go crazy.
And Grant Sheik, there's like more than one of these brothers. Like,
I know.
It's like a new thread. I mean, it's not new, but it's like because like these people are like my age.
Yeah. They be on it, going in too, dropping some stuff on your head. Do you like for real?
Yeah.
Prophet is the man, y'all. He really opened his doorway up for this to happen. That's crazy.
Opened it up.
Hey, that Spanish letter from the 1500s, who talked about how North America was home of the Canaanites and like Moabites and all that. I was thinking to myself, like, dang, yo, like Noble Drew Ali, he knew all of this like 100 years ago with no computer, with no laptop.
Yo, he was a genius, yo. Like a real
years
genius.
ago. No nothing.
Shit.
Just freaking brain.
None of these pictures, more. This dude, like, who was the prophet for real? Like, we'll find out one day. Like, no, let me drop that on y'all. Did y'all know the dude who played M'Baku in the damn Black Panther?
Yeah.
They're casting him as Marcus Garvey. There's a Marcus Garvey movie coming out on Amazon called Marked Man. And it's about how Marcus Garvey got sold out. So it's basically a Jesus and Judas and stuff, but the Marcus Garvey version. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
If they don't put the prophet in this or mention the Moors in this, I'm not watching movies anymore.
Has any movie ever mentioned? I mean, we see that picture of Drew Ali on that Denzel Washington, but the actual visualization of the prophet. Has any movie ever did that? Has any movie ever did that?
It's Stick Up Kids. Stick Up Kids did it.
Oh, for real?
The movie Stick Up Kids. Yeah, the light-skinned dude that played the who's the dude on was that Five Harpies that hung the light-skinned dude over the bench?
Yeah.
He played in that movie. He wrote it. They got him out of Hollywood after that.
Yeah.
He his young boy be trying to go in the streets, and they like, come on, man, you need to learn your nationality. Don't you know we elves and days and that whole movie?
I seen that. I'm talking about an actual like Drew Ali, like as an actual character. Like you know how they got the Malcolm X movie and they got Muhammad Ali in it, or variation. They had the Muhammad Ali movie and they had like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in there. Has there ever been a movie and they had the Prophet as a character in there? I haven't seen it, but I think if something like that ever happened, like it might be like an earthquake, like an X-class, like an X-class solar flare. An X-class solar flare might just hit the earth.
For real, bro, because that's how it was when he was born. So it ain't, damn.
But yeah, it was a great build. It was a great build. I appreciate it. It was some things that he was connecting that was great points. You feel me?
Yeah.
Moors, we already study etymology and linguistics, but it was just some things he's pointing out because we already know about the like Moscow and Russia, obviously, but like connecting it with the Muskogee, like damn, like you feel me? That's like, you feel me? Because we know it's 1,000 variations of Muscovy, and we already know Russia had jurisdiction. We already know Russia had jurisdiction in North America. We already know that connection. You feel me? So to hear points like that was great. It was good. I appreciate
it. And how he connected Fez to pheasant.
More that I never
Yeah,
heard
that
of.
was a good one
Yeah.
too.
That was the one. That was good because it's like they always every time I was just looking up Fez and they try to say, oh, well, the land is named after the Fez of over there in Morocco, and then when you look up the land of Fez, they said they named that land after the Fez. So it's
Yeah.
like, which came first, the land of the Fez? And it goes into the dye that they use to make the Fez, and the only dye I could find is called sumac from the sumac plant. That's indigenous to North America. So I don't, so, the whole Fez story is confusing until he did that pheasant.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And give thanks to you, Al Jameer, for studying and sending the links when you find them.
Hey, I was watching brother Aboriginal Powers channel.
Yeah.
And he was playing it because Aboriginal Power, he his right hand man's A1.
Yeah.
They've been going off too lately. More like they're speaking up for us against people that've been speaking against the prophets, speaking against the Moors. I'm loving it. It has to. It's about time. Shit.
Because the proof is in the pudding. Which you there's nothing to disprove.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so documented that it's a surplus. It's an overload of evidence.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure that every time I see you go on there and like go live, I like be in the chat to keep because we like what we did today we can't do it everywhere because people are so sensitive with being told who they are and stuff. You can't really do that. But the way this was, it was perfect. Like every time you come on more, you start the Morgar cocking. I know where you're gonna go. I just gotta kind of let it simmer till you can start going in, and then I could follow suit with it.
Yeah.
It's always like that.
Straight up.
Because that's the same diaspora. A Morgadi Kaken is Moorish American.
Mm-hmm.
That's the original. That's one of the original names of Moorish American in the indigenous American languages, which would be Muskogee, Meta'at, Algonquin, Iroquois, etc. Which would the brother Longo, what he would probably say is Shemitic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some Shemitic.
Feel me? Or he would know it as Muslim or Arabic, aka what we call Moorish now. It's all about putting the pieces together. That's what Moor mean. It means to connect, set, anchor, fix. That's why he was showing the pictures of the anchors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That made it crazy too, because it like that took it to another paradigm in our mind. Like we shift our mindset to that. It's like, oh, okay, we more ancient than even what we was looking at as more.
Yeah.
Look at these. Look at this.
Who knows how long, man? That's why best that we could do is just go from the present point and then keep on going back century after century after century after century, trying to connect it. And then hopefully by the time we out of the thousands, we in the so-called BC area, that we could start putting together some of this more ancient Atlantean type of history. But you feel me? I don't really.
To get there, we need like I think it starts at 23,000 BC is where you start the Atlantean culture, and then after when you go down the timeline, the more recent thing is the Ibero-Maurusian, but they was in Tartaria too. I found that like they called them the Ish people and Paleo Atlanteans. It's so much shit. But
So much.
It's all Moorish.
Crazy. Give thanks, Moors. Great build as usual.
Appreciate it. All love.
Yeah, it's long.
Honors to all the Moors out there.
Islam family. Islam to the Moors in the chat. All the family around the world, globally, around the Moorish Empire.
Stay warm out there, y'all. It's cold as hell right now. They're doing that weather thing. They're doing that weather thing. But stay warm. Put your turbans on and whatnot.
There you go. That's up. Everybody, when it get cold, everybody turn Moorish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing it.
By default. Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love, family. Islam.
My born day independence and law makes civil literal lost case. With case laws, we break them down like Jericho.
Common sense was made before book sense. Canaanland Moors presents Common Sense Quick.
Legendary, bury me in the North Gate Cemetery, February the 4th days. Son of Mary, day ahead of my born day. Independence and law makes civil literal lost case. With case laws, we break them down like Jericho. Keeping all my lions tamed, I'm Chris Jericho. I'll keep a mask on deck, I'm Rey Mysterio. Fake pandemics announced over the radio. Annoyed with the game, the joys and the pains. I'm Rob Bass, mixing with rock the hard way. I was in a lost state. Prophets told me up right, brought me to a lost gate. Cooking like I'm Salt Bay, prepping like I'm Denzel. Malcolm X, Deja Vu, Roman J. Israel. Had no but I lay in plain sight, but people still can't see it. So the snake's still showing up, stakes still high, so the race still going up. Warriors of the North Gate, we not slowing up. Born in the manger, sworn to be savior. Walk through the valley of the shadows of the death, dip in slavery. Looking for light, the book of Genesis. Astroplane entrances, invoke the nemesis. Abstract images of past lives kicking in. Danger, running for your life, finish him.
Moorish or Moor, key man or oracle. Using trinity powers, decipher allegorical. Lost in metaphorical, holy books are metaphysic. Fact slap a dirty Moor or a Drew Ali critic. Calling him Thomas or Walter and get your face caved. Or cut like a close shave. Drowned in my brain waves, squashed by heat waves. Activating Kundalini. Abyssinia invaded by Mussolini. Selassie I in exile. Reptile in Genesis, niggas appearing real. All I see is false evidence. DA are feminists, stomped on by elephants. More like no prejudice, but want Moorish benefits. When you feel the cold magnetic resonance. Apis horns of the sacred book called Maleficent. Great cosmic mothers, return to blessedness. No pestilence, ace all the testaments. Tap into remembrance, never to forget again. Use energy right, not put spell effects on men. Wandering the earth plane with no they live shades. Keeps you a mental slave as the horizon fades. It's been decades since Christian crusades. Not enough rebellions, too many vigil bouquets. Holding on to the fence, burning on doomsday. War ruled by Mars, it might be on a Tuesday.
Canaanland Moors presents Common Sense Quickie. What we do here is we add some common sense thinking to everyday situations or comments that may arise. Want to give it a try?